All right, we are live from Occupy City Hall in Rockford, Illinois. We are the May 30th Alliance. I'm here with Rabbit, a member of the May 30th Alliance, and I'm here with Kay, another member of the May 30th Alliance. My name is Leslie. I'm also a member of the May 30th Alliance. The May 30th Alliance is a direct action group located in Rockford, Illinois. We are our main objective is ending the police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice, which has afflicted this community, for decades. We are currently in the process of occupying the City Hall in Rockford, Illinois. We came out here on October 3rd after on October 2nd, October 2nd, 2020, Tyrus Jones, an unarmed black man, was shot as he was running away in the streets of Rockford, Illinois, by police officer Dominic McNeese. He was shot multiple times in the back. He was unarmed. Officer Dominic McNeese was cleared of any wrongdoing within 2 months of the shooting, and he went back to work within 3 months of the shooting. And then within 2 months of him being back at work, he was involved in the assault of Denzel Duvant, another unarmed black man who was beat mercilessly while he was handcuffed by the Rockford Police Department. That took place on January 5th, 2021. We continue to our occupation through that. And then on April 10th, 2021, Faustin Guetigo was murdered inside of his home by Winnebago County Sheriff Deputy Joseph Brulard. And then within 24 hours of that lynching that took place inside of the home of Faustin Guetigo, Jose Gonzalez Jr., a 19-year-old, was shot while running away by the Rockford Police Department in the streets of Rockford, Illinois. And the officer who shot him, Owen McGinnis, was involved in the assault of protesters on May 30th, 2021, was involved in the false arrest of protesters on May 30th, 2021, and he was named in a lawsuit for excessive force to a member of this community before May 30th of 2020. May 30th, 2020 is when Owen McGinnis assaulted people who were out protesting at District 1 in Rockford, Illinois. And so also Raymond Jackson, a man died after a police chase led to the person who was being chased crashing into an innocent civilian, innocent bystander, killing the man driving the car, and injuring the children that were in the car. And we live in a city in which year in and year out, people, innocent bystanders, people who are not involved in the police chase, have been critically injured and have had fatalities because of these police chases which have taken place in our city streets. And again, the Rockford Police Department and the Winnebago County Sheriff deputies get millions of dollars for a budget, tens of millions of dollars for budget. They can most certainly go and find these people a different day instead of turning the streets of Rockford, Illinois and Winnebago County into a scene out of the Fast 9 movie. And too often that is what has happened here because of the bloodthirsty mentality of these police officers who just want to bring in people dead or alive like it's the Wild Wild West. And so I say all those things to say that we want to lay out all of those different macro aggressions for people. We want to lay out all of those different incidents and events for people to let them know and understand the different ways that police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice affect the community, whether directly or indirectly. And so we want to say, for anybody who may be watching this video and was going to share this video and needs something to hashtag it, share it in hashtag Justice for Tyrus Jones. Share it in hashtag Justice for Denzel Duvant. Share it in hashtag Justice for Faustin Guetigo. Share it in hashtag Justice for Jose Gonzalez Jr. Share it in hashtag Justice for Raymond Jackson. And again, we lay out all 5 of those different incidents that have taken place since October 2nd, 2020, because we understand that some people may not have empathy for Tyrus Jones. But do they have empathy for Denzel Duvant? We understand some people may not have empathy for Denzel Duvant, but do they have empathy for Faustin Guetigo? We understand some people may not have empathy for Faustin Guetigo, but will they have empathy for Jose Gonzalez Jr.? And if they don't have empathy for any of those 4 people, will they have empathy for Raymond Jackson? And at the point in which an individual or collectives of people let us know that this incident, this event is worthy of empathy. What's up, man? Is worthy of empathy, that is when we explain to them and extrapolate out these issues and explain to them if they have empathy for Tyrus Jones, this is how the situation of Denzel Duvant interrelates to Tyrus Jones. If they don't have empathy for Tyrus Jones, but they have empathy for Jose Gonzalez Jr. or Faustin Guaitigo, this is how these issues interrelate to these people. And so that is why at the beginning of these videos we continuously say, that's why at the end of these videos we continuously say, at the beginning of these videos, we continuously say justice for all of these people. And so what we're going to do today is speak about the different incidents and the different events which have taken place in Rockford, Illinois or actually we want to say Rockford, Illinois and the Winnebago County, Illinois, from the Kim Tool fire that took place earlier in the week to the events that took place on Friday when Ari and myself had arrest warrants issued out for us for 2 weeks prior filming public works of Rockford, Illinois, destroying memorials, to the events that took place at City Market, which Kay was there at City Market, and then to the events which took place yesterday, not only the Juneteenth event that took place, or is it Juneteenth? Is it Juneteenth or is it Juneteenth? I must continue to say that because of some of the antics that have went on around it. Again, that is not an attack. That is an observation. But we also, after that, we want to speak about last night near Taco Betty's. There was an arrest that took place, an unjust, unlawful arrest that took place. Member of the May 30th Alliance, Kay, was there to not only film some of those things, but to speak. He witnessed it. He witnessed it. Unlawful arrest. Yep. And so we will get to that as well. So those are some of the things that we're going to speak about to try to keep the order flowing in a good manner. We're going to have Rabbit start off speaking about the Kim Tool fire because he was in Rockton. Rockton is part of Winnebago County. And again, we want to just speak on all these different things that are going on, and we'll find ways to interrelate all of these things. And so I'll let Rabbit go ahead and speak a little bit about some of the things going on in Rockton, which is, again, Rockton is in Winnebago County.
Okay. All right, the first thing I wanted to say was on Monday, today is the 20th, Monday, June 14th, 2021, there was a large chemical explosion at the Chem Tool plant on Prairie Hill Road in Rockton, Illinois. During this time, the company had no sprinklers in place, leading to, had this not been an occurrence, the fire wouldn't have spread as out of control as it did. As many of you noticed, that was what pretty much took over our Mondays, was the fact that we could see smoke from 50, 60, 70 miles away from the site. And you could smell it from. Oh yeah, that was. I'll get to that part in a moment. But among that day was at about 6:30 in the morning. I was asleep, and I heard a loud boom. I didn't really think much of it because I wanted to go to sleep. About 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm being woken up to people telling me, you need to go outside with your camera right now. And so I just stepped outside to see what was going on. And then I see the large cloud of smoke, and I immediately knew what was I kind of just decided that it's like the only way to figure it out is just go in there. And through that time, every road going north into town was shut off at one point, I'd say within about a mile of town. And the entire time, and as the day progressively went on, the zone started going farther and farther back, telling us we couldn't be here, we couldn't be there. And immediately I knew, and immediately the closer you got, the higher the bigger the smell was, and everyone could. I'm trying to think of I prefer questions, questions, but it's just I'm just as the day continued, the smell became more and more profound, and you immediately began to look around. There were chunks of chemical debris laying all through the town. It was we were getting reports of them down in Rockford. I know a large number of people. Were there any down here?
No, I didn't see any. My fault. We gonna get more mics. We keep having to spend money on bail. We haven't been able to spend money on some of the equipment needs. But I didn't see any pieces out here or any of the smell. But I definitely seen the sky was looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie or something like that. As you were talking, one of the things that and again, because we want to make sure we want to sort of give this that's a news analysis. We want to also try to tie into some of the political
like the interconnections.
yeah, the undertones and things, and well, I'll pass this over to Kay. Let Kay speak about this, speak some more about this specific incident as well. But one of the things that I just thought about was that I noticed that they still had this Old Settler Days event, even though that even though that this danger and these evacuations and getting people out of their homes, even though all of this happened, I think it's very telling about the type of society we live in, that they were not going to miss out on a chance to make money. They were not going to miss out on a chance to celebrate colonialism. They were not going to miss out on a chance to celebrate, white supremacy or white nationalism, whichever, context this fits into more specifically, and so, and then we'll pass it over to Kevin.
Yeah. One thing to note about Old Settlers Days as well, the evacuation zone was reduced so they could have the festival. So like Leslie said, the dollars from this event were considered to be more important than getting people back into their homes, or even just pushing it later into the summer. And they immediately chose that the dollars were more important, that those people, their lives, their livelihoods, their homes did not matter to them, because it was a disruption to what, as we always say, disruption to business as usual.
There we go.
I did want to add to this that immediately, I believe it was within 24 hours of the fire, the day that it happened, I was watching a live press conference, and the gentleman was explaining why they couldn't use water because it would leach into the river, and he let it be known on that press conference they were going to let it burn till Monday. Now, that's the issue in itself, but as Rabbit said, the whole issue with the sprinkler system, that's obviously a huge lawsuit.
They said that, and according to them, don't even pass it down. I'm just going to speak up. And according to them, they were in the process of
Go finish.
and they were in the process of upgrading those of allegedly upgrading those systems, and then they had OSHA had filed came and inspect a federal inspection just 1 month prior, and those findings are typically take about 6 months to be released to the public as well. So there were definitely other factors that went in of negligence to not only to the community but to those workers as well that came about with this company, and this was just the tipping point.
And the reason why I brought that up is because it's very telling that the powers that be, the power structure, the politics, they've already put out a release. Now, unless they've recanted, the release stated that they had no problem, and this is while this fire was burning, they had no problem on this company rebuilding their company so that all these people could go back to work. That was within the first 24 hours. Like I said, unless they recanted and pulled back on that statement because of the whole issue with the sprinkler system not being fully installed in the whole building and whatnot, code violations, OSHA, whatnot. The fact of the matter is there's a lot of stuff going on. Now, this isn't the first time Rockford dealt with any chemical issues. That's Rockton, but in this region, I should say, Winnebago County, because it made me think about where the library used to be and how there was chemicals there, and there's other areas in Rockford that basically were dumping grounds throughout history. Exactly. Now, and I'm saying that to say this, I mean, it's all relevant to where we're at socially on a society level. What is always deemed again and again most important? It's dollars over lives, dollars over people, dollars over community, capitalism overall.
And again, one of the things I spoke to Terry, and I don't have the exact source that this is from, but me and Terry were having a conversation about this chemical fire, and one of the things that he said is that when Chem Tool was initially bought out, or the people who own it now purchased it, it was a story that ran in the Rock River Times when the old owner of the Rock River Times was alive. He was more of an investigative journalist, and he put out a story talking about how this company who owned it had been involved in other basically incidents of negligence, that have led to things similar to this happening. And so the man said when they bought this place, that he wrote that he believed that eventually at some point in the future that there would be some type of incident like this because of their track record. And so I thought that was a very telling thing. And then again, and as both Kay and Rabbit has pointed out, this is just another reminder of how this county and this country is property is put over people and profitability is put over people, and and so I think that even though this is a situation that none of us here are experts on this situation, and none of us here have all the specifics of this situation, we want to make sure that as many things that go, one of the things that has happened in that the May 30th Alliance and these lives and our post and social media presence has turned into is just speaking on everything that happens in the area, and even there's points where we've spoken about things that have happened nationally or things that have happened globally, and because we are all interconnected. We are all, whether directly or indirectly, affected by these things. And sometimes I think that because of the lives that we lead, a lot of times we have to put on blinders to get through these days to survive, in a sense. You can't pay attention to every single situation that deserves your attention, or every single situation that deserves your empathy, or every single situation that you should know about or should be knowledgeable about. And so one of the things that we've been able to do is be a conduit for people who maybe aren't able to think deeper about certain situations or look deeper into certain situations, or maybe you just seen something scrolling on the timeline and you didn't get to find out more specifics about it. So we want to continue to try to be that medium. And so is anybody else have anything else to say about Rabbit go some more about
Among one thing, oh yeah, like right there. One thing that I should definitely note as well is in the immediate aftermath, a group of concerned citizens, including myself, became part of a group calling for accountability for ChemTool. In that group, we became connected with somebody from a small town in France. None of us had ever heard of the town, but it turns out the same company that owns ChemTool, there was a similar incident to what had happened on Monday in his town in 2019, and their community as well are still looking for answers as to what happened, as well as accountability. Because some of the not only with the foam that the fire department used is very toxic as well, but the chemicals that we're burning are known to cause serious health damages. So it's very concerning as to what might happen to the residents of the town, including myself, for what's going to happen to like the health problems that we may have in 10 years, because there's a high school less than 2 miles. There's a high school a mile and a half, not even a mile and a half down the road. There's schools all very close.
in school?
No, there's nobody in school, right? It's mostly like the athletes. Like they have like the athletes who are going in for practice and whatnot. But like there are no kids in school right now. But had this happened 1 month prior, this would be I feel as if there would be a lot more accountability to right away to what had happened, and I say that's really all I got to say about the matter.
Hold on, let me sit it down for you. Start talking. That way you can catch everything.
Just as a point of reference too, this cannot be overstated. It's not something that's a belabored point, but Illinois is the politically most corrupt state acknowledged in the United States. Illinois is, I'm going to say it again, because the point of reference is when you start talking about politics, corruption is not a victimless crime. Just because there's money being allocated or misappropriated or not spent properly, or there's other aspects that make it corrupt, it's not victimless, because we as the citizens collectively bear the brunt of the decisions that are made by the politicians at large. But given the nature of politics, the newcomers say, well, it wasn't on my watch, so you can't blame me. So that lack of taking ownership by saying it happened before me It happened before me. Well, you adopted a system that was built upon sand to begin with. But if you're just as guilty by not walking through the proper protocol or steps to correct the issues. And that's why I just felt led to tie this into this, because obviously at some point dealing with this company became an example of knowing what they should have done and just not following through with it. But look at who bears the brunt of the decisions of cutting corners and not having certain things done. Everyone involved is basically saying, don't point the finger at me. It's not just me, or, you can't just blame me. But we all know who the actual victims were. It was an entire community became the victims of other people's negligence or willful ignorance of circumstances for the sake of capital gain. Political corruption or any type of corruption is not a victimless crime. Rockford, in its own right, has a history of corruption. But you talk to anyone currently in any administration, well, I didn't do it. But the million-dollar question is, what are you doing to change it?
Right. That's 100% accurate. I think that again, that's one of the reasons that we have that we are doing these things is because a lot of times corruption is a very arbitrary word. People hear somebody say corruption or something's corrupt, and a lot of times people don't really know how to factor that or what that means, and a lot of times it means a lot of different things. I think that the ticketing, the way that they do parking tickets here is corrupt. I've seen a parking lot half empty parking lot, and somebody happened to be parked in a spot for extra 20 or 30 minutes, and the parking people come and give them a ticket. That's because it's a racket. The tickets are not being done to make sure people are moving and make sure that it's open space for people to park downtown. They're being done so they can collect revenue, so the city can make money, which is corrupt. Which is a corrupt action. The police department, when we say the police department is corrupt, that doesn't necessarily mean that every police officer is stealing keys of cocaine from drug dealers on the streets. The fact that in this city, it is 15% to 10 to 15% a black population, 65% white population, and black people get pulled over 3 times as often as white people is corruption. That is corrupt. It's a corrupt activity. You want to add something? Yeah, hold on, let you speak. Right there.
I remember there was a speech one night you were listening to from a pastor. I cannot remember the name of this pastor, but he one thing he quoted was that Winnebago County is 14% black, but the jail population is 58% black, which is definitely a very troubling wave of mass incarceration that occurs as well amongst not just amongst in Winnebago County.
All right. Yeah, and again, those are all different forms of corruption, and so that leads us to I don't think Kay or Rabbit has sort of spoke about this yet, but that's the police.
Yeah.
Oh, they're going through that way. He ain't got nowhere to go. He going to pick up a pizza.
Oh yeah, he turned his lights.
He turned his lights off. He ain't got nowhere to go. He going to pick up a pizza. But neither one of you have, I don't believe, have spoken, at least on the lives, about the arrest warrants that were issued for the memorial desecrations. At the time that the arrest warrants were issued, and at the time Ari was arrested, and at the time when I went to turn myself in, we were not 100% sure what these arrest warrants were for. But as time has unfolded and as paperwork have been given out, we have come to find out that myself and Ari had arrest warrants issued for us for filming the public works officials desecrating the memorials on Say Their Name Square. As they desecrated the memorials, again, we filmed them, and we had megaphones, sirens, the sirens on the megaphones going, and we spoke in the megaphones. And that is the disorderly conduct charge that was attributed to me and Ari. And so I would like, as people who have been here for the putting up of these memorials, as people who have met some of the family members whose loved ones are on these memorials, as people who have been involved in the struggle against police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice for the past 13 months in this city, what are your thoughts about these arrest warrants being issued over the memorials being desecrated, and what's some of your thoughts about the memorial desecration? And then also, we are currently, I have no contact orders with the people who destroyed the memorials. Their names were listed on my paperwork, so I no longer can film them tearing down the memorials or protest as they tear down the memorials, because I must be 300 feet away from these people once me and them come into contact with each other. So we'll let Kay speak about these, and then we'll pass it over and let Rabbit speak, and then I'll sort of chime in about the things both of them add to this.
All right, I'm gonna start this off briefly with an analogy. In any kingdom, the level of compassion of that king is based on how he treats the least in the kingdom, whether they be the widows, the children, the fatherless. The least, or the least in the society, or at least deemed in that society, is the measure of a king. And I'm using that to reference Rockford, because the mayor is the highest position in the land. No matter what lip service he gives to the black community about his intentions, or what he says he may be trying to do, and I'm finding on a national level that's the biggest theme that we're getting is, well, I'm trying, I'm trying, I'm going to bat for you, I'm trying. Well, you're trying, but 2 states just passed. How in the world in America can 2 states pass this? But you're trying to do something for black communities, but you just passed in 2 Republican states. It is illegal to protest. And if you hit someone with your vehicle, you get a specific type of immunity where you won't be charged for murder or attempted murder. We're still in America, folks, but this is what happens when people try but don't do. I'm using that to say this about Rockford. Whatever the mayor says he's trying to do, this mission that we're on is for justice. And I feel like a lot of people are missing the simplicity of, well, why are you guys out there? Justice? What do you guys want? I don't understand. Justice and equality. We're standing up against police brutality, excessive force, and racial discrimination. There's other aspects to this, but it's that simple. So when you have pushback from the police, it's deeper than that. For anyone watching, understand the mechanics involved. Understand the puppetry. The puppet master is the mayor. The shots that get called, it's not the state's attorney's office. It's the mayor. State's attorney gets involved when there's a legal issue that happens in Rockford. But the dispatch of police, the amount of how many police come, what types of equipment they come with, that all comes from the mayor's department. The same mayor that sponsors something for Juneteenth. The same mayor that is the mayor of the entire city, but is working against his black community. Before you start typing, well, how is he doing that? Well, in case you don't understand the revenue of the Justice Center, a portion of that revenue is spent in certain districts. If you go back and look through the charts of where the money's spent, it's spent in the predominantly white districts in Rockford. But yet, where's the Justice Center? Within spitting distance of the black community. So what am I saying? What are you saying, Kay? What I'm saying is the Justice Center is a machine that takes a percentage of revenue drawn into Rockford, and they use that money against the people that live in the community and benefit other districts. The money literally gets spent. You can look this up. The money that goes into the Justice Center gets spent in other districts around Rockford, but they're not black.
Memorial.
Now, as far as the memorials, because this is all tied into the memorials. I'm saying all that, and it's a lot, but I want to stay on point. In regards to the memorials, anything and everything you've seen on any of these lives, that came from the mayor, that came from City Hall. The police didn't just show up on their own. You can ask them, and they'll tell you, we never show up on our own. We show up based on the request of someone dispatching us. The chief of police didn't say, hey, send them down there to rip down the memorials. The memorials have been ripped down how many times? 9 times?
9 times. But the city.
was involved with that. So that's, everyone understand this. The city was involved with that. Now, how I feel is this. I asked the mayor personally, is the city going to allocate any money because the police, now this is a real conversation. I said this face to face to the mayor. I said, now the RPD just got an extra $3 million at the end of the fiscal year of 2020. An extra $3 million. They were approved for that. I asked him, and I looked him in the eye because I wanted an answer. I said, now, there are memorials downtown, basically on light poles. But I said, the victims, these are very real people in the community. They have families, they have representation, and the families are heartbroken that this is happening. I said, do you think that it would be prudent or would be fair if the city itself decided to do justice for these families and allocated a piece of property that's not even being used in Rockford to put a memorial? His answer to me was no. No.
Be careful. You want to be careful putting justice in that.
But and my point is, for anyone saying, well, I don't understand how you're seeking justice. I went to the mayor and I asked him that question, and his answer was no. So speaking about the memorials, the energy that you see in ripping them down is not just to say, let's make them go away. It's, we are not going to assist in any way to help heal this community in what's happening with the police brutality. We're just going to rip it down and hope it goes away. That's literally the formula. You put it up, we're going to rip it down. Well, as a city, do you have any answers? Do you have a resolution? Are you trying to help heal your black community? Because this is not 6 months from now. It may, that God forbid, but 6 months from now, 3 months from now, 2 days from now, it could be another name that Leslie is reading off. Why? Because the system itself, there's no resolution based on how the system is functioning. So my point to what I'm saying about what's being done, there is nothing being provided to heal the black community in regards to the police and how they even get to a point to shoot someone so that they become a memorial in the first place. And then the double insult is, once they are shot, Winnebago Boone County Task Force finds the officer innocent of all charges for every case they've ever had, everyone has ever been vindicated, then the person becomes a memorial. And then insult to injury, like spitting on their grave, is, we don't want to see their face. We're not even going to allow you to post their face, and we're going to rip it down. As the one officer said out of his own mouth, junk. He called it junk, garbage.
Yeah. Randy Burke, interim chief. Yeah, that Kay speaking about Randy Burke, the interim chief. Those were the words that he used to describe the memorials. He came down. Well, the city of Rockford has also called the memorials trash. They threw them in trash bags. They threw them in trash. The first time that the memorials were desecrated and destroyed, they were thrown in trash bags. The teddy bears, the flowers, all the things, the candles that were there were all thrown in the trash. They said that a story came out where the city workers said that they were harassed as they were taking out trash. We knew that the trash they were referring to were the memorials that they had destroyed and threw in trash bags. And then one day, on one of the times the memorials have been desecrated, it was done by the Rockford Police Department. And as the Rockford Police Department came out, the person who is now the interim chief, Randy Burke, he said, let's get the rest of this trash, speaking to the officers that he had brought out, and on cue, the multiple police officers from the Rockford Police Department went about destroying the memorials that were around Say Their Name Square. And again, it's video footage of each time that these memorials have been desecrated and destroyed, and that is what that is one of the end goals that is being done. And that is one of the end goals that they are trying to get at, is trying to avoid continuously being filmed doing these acts, because we live in a city in which covert racism is the form of racism which is perpetrated here. And so I want to let Rabbit jump in here and let Rabbit say some things about, his thoughts on all these things around the memorial desecrations.
Yeah, I say bend it down a little bit. I think perfect. Well, one thing I do want to say is, in regards to the memorials, the first thing I want to say is that, as we've all said, we've all been here at one point where we've put up memorials or on an anniversary of on one of the individuals, whether it be their birthday or the anniversary of their of what happened to them, and through that being murdered. Okay, no, it's and like during those times, we've all met family members of each of some of these victims, and almost every time we always hear the family members, and we consistently interact with them through social media as well, that they are very appreciative of the memorials being up, that the names and faces of their loved ones are being kept alive, as the city has consistently tried to sweep them under the rug, whilst celebrating having events such as the Juneteenth celebration at Mississippi Park, and then also having the stealing money from using the money from the Justice Center and funneling it back to certain areas. And then I also wanted to add as well, having District 1 in front of fairgrounds, and as another form of sort of intimidation.
All three districts.
Yeah, we say all three. I was going to mention the District 2 being on Broadway as well, and then District 3. And then the entire time, it's you notice that they come down. It's whether it be the Public Works Department, whether it be the Police Department, they come down very, very early in the morning where there is very minimal traffic. So because they also, in addition to not wanting to be filmed or giving out their names and badge numbers, they also don't want people driving by to see what's going on. Sort of as to make it seem like, oh, these protesters, they're just crazy. They don't have any actual substance, despite that it seems like almost every interaction is filmed with police. You can look back on every time the memorials have been taken down, every time the memorials have been put up, every time they come down at 4:00 in the morning with 10 officers, and then continue to stand up on the podiums at their press conferences and say, we need help fighting violent crime. And while at the same time keeping their scanners encrypted, so as to make it impossible for us as citizens to actually figure out like who is committing these crimes, and but using those same resources that you could use to fight said crime or doing actual alleged police work. I'm going to use quotations with that, and using those officers to come down here to tear down memorials, to harass people while they're sleeping, give them serving arrest warrants on charges that they really haven't figured out quite yet. They're just making it up as they go.
No, yeah, and again, right now, for anybody who may just be tuning in, we're speaking about the memorial desecrations, which have gone on 10 times now here. Not nine. They've been destroyed and torn down 9 times, and we put them up 10 times. Excuse me. Thank you, Rabbit. And so again, one of the things that I want to point out and speak about these memorial desecrations, and to just talk about the memorials a little bit more in depth, is that it should be understood that it's 16 memorials that we have up. Of the 16 memorials, 13 of them are black people. 2 of them are white people, and then one person is Mexican, Hispanic, Latino. And I do not think that it is, again, coincidental that they do not want these black faces up in this area. This area has been anybody who's from Rockford, Illinois, knows how much work that the white community and that the business community in this area has put into gentrifying and reinvigorating downtown Rockford. The Tom McNamara recently said that he considers this area of Rockford to be the heart of the city. And that is why we have chosen to put these memorials here. I know that there are some people who have questioned how come these memorials are not at the places where the people were killed, as it is with some memorials in the area. And again, the reasoning for that is because of the heavy foot traffic that is in this area. The reasoning for that is because of the demographic of the heavy foot traffic that is in this area. I believe that it is very important for the people who come to this area to go out to eat, who come to this area to go bar hopping, who come to this area essentially to get away from the realities of their life, that they are reminded of the things that that people in this community are not able to get away from, that people in this community are not able to be distracted from. As it stands, if we were to put these memorials in all the places where each one of these victims were killed at, the amount of people who would see the memorials would drop exponentially less, because a lot of these people have been killed in places in which this city purposely maneuvers people away from those areas, purposely maneuvers people away from those locations. And this is an area in which the city purposefully maneuvers people into. And so we have to, again, part of protesting and demonstrations, a humongous part of it is being strategic, is being tactical. And so it is a tactical reason, a strategic reason in which these memorials are in this place. Again, the city, these memorials are outside of City Hall. Anything that you want to get done in Rockford, you have to come to City Hall to get it done. You have to come to City Hall to get permits. You have to come to City Hall if you get certain tickets and citations. And so there is also something to be said about the amount of different demographics of people who come in this area on a regular basis. And so I think that even for some of the black people who may come to this area to pay fines, or come to this area for tickets, or come to this area for any other plethora of reasons they need to come to City Hall, I think it's also important for those people to see the names of these memorials. I think a lot of young people come down in this area, and I find it very encouraging when I see young people looking at the light poles and looking at the names and asking questions about the names, or when I see a family that I know is just going out to eat or going to Woodfire, and as they're going by, somebody points out the light pole, and they start to notice all the other light poles in the area. And I believe that the city knows that these things are happening. It's impossible for them to not know these things are happening. We post these memorials on social media on a regular basis, and when we post them, they get shared a bunch, they get liked a bunch, they go everywhere. And as it stands, the city pays close tabs to our social media pages. The police department pays close tabs to our social media pages. The state's attorney keeps close tabs on our social media pages. And I believe 100% that there has been a culture shift in this community. Has it been a complete change? No, it has not been a complete change, but there has been a shift. There's been a shift of the conscience of this community. Has it been a complete change? No, but it has been a shift. And you can see the fear that the powers that be have of it becoming a complete change. And that is why they are willing to arrest people for filming memorials being desecrated. That is why they are willing to arrest people for protesting memorials being desecrated. That's why they are willing to shut down the most major street in this city for 10 hours on Friday nights, and not even remove it to early on Saturday mornings, to keep a small number of protesters from being at City Hall. It is because they are in fear of a complete change of the culture of this society. They are in fear of a complete change in the consciousness of this society, and they see the small shifts that are happening. And so I think that it is incumbent upon us to continue pushing those shifts. And that's why I'm very happy that even though me and Ari had arrest warrants put out, that members of the community and the May 30th Alliance and members of the May 30th Alliance made their presence felt at City Market on Friday. I think that is very important that we continue to occupy City Hall, even through all the pushback that we have gotten. And so I'm very proud of everybody and that's been involved in these last weeks. There has, and again, I'm gonna pass this off, and we're gonna speak about a few more things. But I do want to acknowledge that there is less people at City Market this year than it was last year, and I understand why there are less people at City Market this year than it was last year. But I have the amount of encouragement I have from the people who are still coming, from the people who are still actively there, from the people who are still 10 toes on the ground at the place where this movement sort of culminated last year, and it keeps me going. I personally I have They have extended the area of City Market. In the area, the permit area, I'm banned from the permit area. I now have a no contact order with the permit area, so I have to be 300 feet away from the beginnings of the permit area. So as it stands, I no longer can go and protest at City Market without being immediately arrested for doing so. And so I am, as much as that makes me feel like a player that has an injury and can't participate in the team and the game that the team is having, the amount of encouragement and strength that I get from seeing my teammates continuing to play hard, my teammates continuing to be dedicated, just lets me know that I have to find a way to be productive in those hours in which I cannot be there. And so does anybody have anything else they want to say about either the memorial desecrations or City Market before we? Okay, we'll let K add something.
A lot of what you're seeing at City Market is desperation from the powers that be. It's a power play of desperation. It's not a power play of strength, because they're doing the same thing they did last year by leveraging taxpayers' resources. Last year they spent over $500,000 in overtime. The footprint, if anyone's going down to City Market, you see how large the footprint is, where they've literally compromised businesses for on-street parking and other aspects for the sake of the City Market. It's not a show of strength. When I look at it, it bothers me to my heart, because it shows me the extent that the framework, that the structure of the ideology of white supremacy will go to quiet those standing up for justice. Again, why are we here? We're standing against injustice, excessive force, racial profiling, and the corruption of just this paradigm structure because of the Justice Center. They have a quota structure. So it's not about justice, even though that's the name on the building. It's the Injustice Center. Their focus is numbers, because even if you're innocent, the process that it takes for you to get out still costs money to prove and fight for your own innocence. That's why they're so arbitrary when they grab someone and say, that's what the court's for. Fight it out in court. But sir, I'm innocent. Fight it out in court. You're going to jail. Because they know at some point it's still a stream of revenue coming in that Rockford partakes of. No different than slavery in the South and cotton and tobacco, when you had whole societies fighting it and saying, what are we going to do if you remove it? What are you going to do if you alter the way the police the African American community? What are you going to do if you alter the way the police alter even, let's say, the extreme? If you remove the Justice Center from where it is and put it somewhere else, let's say, in the context of the building. Obviously, in a perfect world, it wouldn't exist. But let's say, even for the sake of whatever it costs to build it there, look at the multiple hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue being lost in that space, not being utilized in other means. The people, in regards to the memorials, they are collateral damage of a city's decision years ago to put the Justice Center there. They're collateral damage. These are human casualties, human victims, casualties of an economic decision to put the Justice Center where it is. And it comes to mind because a young lady, a blonde girl, probably 22 years old, walked up and she said, I feel helpless. I agree with what you're doing. And she stopped, and her friends looked at her like, you're stopping? And she said, yeah, I'm going to stop. I want to talk to him. And she walked up to me and she said, can I just tell you something? I agree with what you guys are doing. Stand up for justice. Stand up for your rights. And what's happening right now around the country, I get it. I just want to tell you, I get it. I understand. And you as a people have a right to be angry. But I feel helpless. I feel helpless. I feel like I want to do something to show my support, but I don't know what to do. Then I told her about City Market. I told her about the memorials and what was happening with the memorials. But the look in her eye was, I'm not deceived by the news or the media outlets, and I know that something has to be done. And I appreciated her honesty in that moment, because she was walking by and they ended up having a full conversation about these memorials.
Yeah, again, what up, bro? Again, so just to give context to some of the things that we talked about, we started out talking about the Kim Tool fire that took place over the week. What's good, bro? You already know we cooking. We cooking. Shit. We get another. There's another chair over there. There's another chair over there. We just talking about some of the stuff that you moving around. You moving around. I should ask you for a coffee. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. No, I'm good. Oh man, damn! It's the wind. It's a little chilly out here, and I went to go put my pants on. My pants wet. I went to go put my hoodie on. My hoodie wet. I'm gonna light this blunt. It'll warm me up a little bit. Yeah, man. We talking, chopping it up, talking about all the different things that have been going on in the city. We was talking about the arrest warrants. They put out the arrest warrants for us filming them. That's what they put out, the arrest warrants for. We got arrested for filming them tearing the memorials down. They tore the memorials down 2 weeks ago. We filmed them, had the megaphones. They put an arrest warrant out for that. That's what we did. $1,500. Me and him, yeah.
But yet,
and then I go to court, again next week.
But yet, this is America.
But then I go to I go to court again next week. All right, so no, you good, bro. But no, again, we just talking about some of the different events that went on. We've talked about the Kim Tool fire in Rockton. We just spoke about the memorial desecrations that took place, that have continued to take place, and then we've spoken about the arrest warrants that were issued for us protesting and filming the desecration of the memorials. We've spoken about the most recent city market that has taken place, and so now we're getting into Saturday. And then on Saturday, as most people know, they had the Juneteenth. It was Juneteenth on Saturday. I want people to understand this. I'm not against Juneteenth. I'm not against celebrating the holiday of Juneteenth or against it becoming a federal holiday. I'm pro Juneteenth. I'm for Juneteenth. However, I am not for the co-opting of anything that has to do with the black liberation struggle. I'm not for the co-opting of anything that has to do with the ending of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice in the city of Rockford, because I understand that the co-opting of these things leads to us never being able to actually truly address and fix these issues. This is what the problem is with the city sponsoring the Juneteenth event. The problem with the city sponsoring a Juneteenth event is that it gives the illusion to people who are not well informed that the city is pro-black liberation, that the city is pro-black lives. And in honesty and in truth, the city is anti-black liberation and anti-black lives. And for anybody who does not understand why I'm saying that, how can a city government, on one hand, fine people $750 a day per memorial, again, per memorial. So that's $750 a day for Mark Barmore's memorial. If two people put up Mark Barmore's memorial, that's $750 a day for both people. Then that goes on to Logan Bell, to Kerry Blake, to Jovan Fresco, to Shannon Graves, to Eugene Washington, to Geno Washington, to Eddie Patterson, to Joseph McCormick, to Mikey Guzman, to Jasper Banks, to Philip Johnson, Faustin Wade Tigo, Little Mike Sago. All of these different people's memorials, they are charging people to put up these memorials. They are charging people by the day to put up these memorials. And then at the same time that they are charging people, trying to make revenue off of these memorials, trying to make revenue off of these people who have been murdered, they are also arresting people and charging people, pressing charges against people for protesting against them removing the memorials. So they're trying to put the people who are filming them destroying the memorials behind bars, and then they are trying to make money off of the people who are putting the memorials back up. Okay, so that is the very definition of being anti-black lives, the very definition of being anti-black liberation. They are engaging in the oppression and exploitation of black people, of black bodies. And then they're going and sponsoring the Juneteenth event. And monetizing from the Juneteenth event, and also trying to make political gains from this Juneteenth event, because that is the other thing that has happened. I watched the videos that they posted from that Juneteenth event where they had booths everywhere. How much literature did they give out to people? How much informing, how much educating did they do to people at this city-funded Juneteenth or Juneteenth event? How much did they do? You see, because that is the problem with celebrating the liberation of a people that are still in the process of struggling for freedom. That is what happens, is you get yourself into a place in which you are celebrating things that have not come to fruition yet. You're what's that saying? You're counting the eggs before they hatch. Ain't that something? Ain't it the saying like that? You gotta don't count your eggs before they hatch. The celebration, especially in a city like Rockford, where a man was just murdered. When Faustin Guaitigo, and whatever people want to say, use this as it was unincorporated Winnebago County. You can say whatever you want. He was murdered in Rockford. That is a Rockford issue. And I wonder how many times was Faustin Guaitigo mentioned at this Juneteenth or Cooneteenth event? How many times was Tyrus Jones mentioned at this Juneteenth or Cooneteenth event? And this is the other thing I want to continue to say, and I will continue to reiterate this about Tyrus Jones and the situation around Tyrus Jones as often and as much as possible. If we get to a place where we do not have empathy for somebody who has a violent crime done to them by the state, because we believe because there's allegations of them being involved with another violent crime to a community member, we are going to be in a dangerous place, because we live in a city in which violent crime is executed at a high rate. So if we are in a place in which, if you are accused of a violent crime, it is okay for you to be brought in dead or alive, we are going to start having a lot of young black and brown boys brought in dead or alive to the Winnebago County Jail. If we do not put values on these young people's lives, these power structures will put no value on it. If we do not believe that if we do not believe that the members of this community who may be the most in need of help are not worthy of help, we will never further as a community. We will never progress as a community. And so if anybody was deserving of justice, it was Tyrus Jones. To say that Tyrus Jones is deserving of justice, and there is nothing that can be said about somebody's decisions or characters or actions that can justify a police officer gunning them down in the streets in broad day while they are unarmed and running away. Because we stand here now today, and I 100% believe this, 100% believe this, that the reason Denzel Duvant was beat like that is because this police department seen that they got okay to shoot Tyrus Jones in the streets after this whole country stopped. This country stopped because of police terrorism against black people. This whole country stopped, and this city was not willing to do that when Tyrus Jones was shot. And so I believe 100% that the reason Denzel Duvant was beat like that is because those police officers were emboldened by the justification of the attempted lynching of Tyrus Jones. I believe 100% that the reason Faustin Guaitigo was lynched inside of his home was because of the justification of the attempted lynching of Tyrus Jones months earlier. And I believe 100% that the reason that Jose Gonzalez Jr. was shot while running away, the same way Tyrus Jones was shot while running away, is because Owen McGinnis knew that his buddy Dominic McNeese had been justified in the attempted lynching of a black man while running away, so he figured he would give it a shot on shooting a young brown boy while running away with no fears of not being found justified in his actions. And we sit here today with about 7 to 8 days left in the month before the racist state's attorney Jay Hanley gets up there and justifies the attempted lynching of Jose Gonzalez Jr. and the successful lynching of Faustin Guaitigo. Do you got something you wanted to add?
I wanted to say this.
Hold on, let me get the mic down for you.
Before any major details came out about Tyrus Jones, when we first came down to City Market, I believe it was the first City Hall. Excuse me. When we first came down to City Hall, again, speaking to an officer, this is not secondhand information. He literally went out of his way to say, we've distanced ourselves from Dominic McNeese in regards to the circumstance.
We know that's not true now, though.
As a department. Now, this is off the cuff. Why would I mention this? Because obviously, officers have details. Officers have information. If you're going out of your way to say, listen, we want you to know that we've distanced ourselves from the actions of this officer. Why was he saying that? Because he was letting me know why they had so much security at the district. It's because they thought people were going to attack the personal cars that are parked there. They thought people were going to either throw Molotov cocktails or just tear that department apart.
Well, hold on. We got to be careful with saying that because they knew that wasn't true because at
No,
that point,
I know that. But I'm prefacing that to say the extreme assumption, because to go on, it was an extreme assumption because I was getting to that. He even started to allude to that and say, from the track record of all the people involved from May 30th till now that you're trying to paint a picture on Rockford that may have happened in other cities, which is still questionable as to who actually caused certain things. I said, you're trying to paint a picture based on a track record that you don't have here. I said, in any incident that you've seen with us, whether it be May 30th or just protesters in general, we've never acted in that response. So I said, I can guarantee you, and I said this myself, I can guarantee you if there is any type of retaliation to that level, it will not be anyone here on this property. And I was standing at City Hall. I said, it won't be any representation of us. It will be a rogue individual. And I said, I'll guarantee you that. It will not be anyone associated with anything that we're doing because that's not our motive, and that's not our platform. We want to be heard. We're not trying to silence our voice by acting out in any manner that would just silence our voice based on something that extreme. But I thought it was very telling that the officer said, we have distanced ourselves from the actions of this officer.
And again, we have to be very careful with reiterating things police officers said, because even though, again, I'm not saying that he didn't say that to Kay, it is very true he said that to Kay, but that is not true. That is not a fact. That's not a fact. That the police department never distanced themselves from Dominic McNeese. Dominic McNeese, after he shot Tyrus Jones, attempted to kill him, he was put on administrative leave. He was put on paid leave. The investigation into it was 2 months. At no point in time was anything ever said to signify that Dominic McNeese made any wrong decision. Not only that, they stood by the fact that he said that he thought he saw a gun. To this day, even when community members, especially Uncle Tom's and any black person who is justifying the police shooting, either any black people who are justifying any police lynchings done on black people are engaging in Uncle Tom activity. And so I don't know who that is. And so again, Dominic McNeese, every time they spoke about the shooting of Tyrus Jones, whether it be the state's attorney or the police department, or again, even Uncle Tom members of the community or racist members of the community, reiterate this idea that people thought they saw a gun, people thought they saw Tyrus Jones had a gun, that Dominic McNeese believed that Tyrus Jones had a gun. And we live in a city in which the belief that a person has a gun, even though they do not have one, is justification for someone to be shot. And I want people to understand what I'm saying when I say that. We live in a city and in a county in which if a police officer believes or thinks he sees you having a gun, if he mistakes your son's brush for a gun and he shoots your son, he will be justified. If he mistakes your son's phone for a gun and he shoots your son, he will be justified, because Tyrus Jones has had nothing. No weapon was recovered. This officer just believed he had a gun because he was charged, because he was looking for him for a crime which was connected to a weapon. Now, again, we have to get to a place as a community in which we are politically aware, and we understand that when the police department has any activities with members of the community, there is probably going to be some type of quote unquote criminal undertones or criminal activity surrounding it. That criminal activity does not negate humanity. It does not negate humanity, and again, I believe we are shifting the culture of this community to be in a place in which people do understand that. But I do believe that it is still a lot of work to be done in that instance. And so with all those things being said, do you have anything you want to add, Rabbit? With all those things being said, I'll let Kay speak about, cause hold on, before we get to that, we were talking about the June, all of this unraveled from speaking about the Juneteenth event. I want to make sure that we hit some of these topics specifically. And so the Juneteenth event that took place on Saturday, I want people to understand we're not against Juneteenth. We were against the co-opting of the city of this Juneteenth event, just like I'm against the co-opting of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris administration of the Juneteenth holiday. But I'm not against the Juneteenth holiday in itself, and I'm not against Juneteenth events taking place in the city within itself. And I do not believe that everybody has to have the same form of struggle that we have, or the same form of tactics, or the same form of ideology that we have. But I will struggle against anybody who is espousing anti-black liberation ideology, even if they are ignorant to the fact that they are doing it. And anybody who is working in coordination with the city for anything that has to do with the black community is working with an entity that is determined to continue to be anti-black and to continue to be anti-black liberation. And not even just anti-black liberation, but anti-black free speech. And so if this city will not let black people speak freely, if this city will not let people speak freely about issues that disproportionately affect black people, how can you take money from the city for black events? How can you sit next to the mayor and take pictures? How can you stand next to these city officials and take pictures? If you are for black liberation, if you are for the ending of black oppression, if you are for the ending of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice as we know it in this city. And so those were the issues that I had with that we collectively, ideologically, had with the events that took place, specifically at the Juneteenth or Cooneteenth event that was down in Mississippi this year. Does anybody have anything else they want to add on the Juneteenth or Cooneteenth event? Here, let me get the mic.
Not on Juneteenth. I just wanted to preference, because I agree with everything you said about the circumstance with Tyrus Jones. The context in which that was said, I mean, obviously we saw that the police will always speak less, unify, and then put up a united front. They will all, at some point, discuss behind closed doors, and then you hear a regurgitated form of a story. But I felt in that moment what he was saying out of humanity was something doesn't seem right. Something doesn't seem right about this scenario. But I do agree wholeheartedly with how it became a canned conversation of alleged gun this and alleged this and alleged that, when a lot of things didn't come to the surface or come to the light of day for a while. I mean, even just the context of the man literally being sewn up and then immediately rushed to the Justice Center. There's just certain circumstances don't make sense, didn't make sense then, and they still don't make sense now.
One thing I did want to add as well is all these the city of Rockford on their Facebook page also posted a number of people who were given awards, and these same people were also used in were also same people who took photos and took money from the city as well. I don't know if you remember some of the people who
yeah, we won't say nobody's name.
Yeah, we're not going to say any names, of course, but it's just like the same. It's just like the same idea of just like pure, like it's just like not semi-exploitative, but a very exploitative way is like using photo, like giving like anyone who takes a photo, does a photo op with us and for their organization or whatever it may be, are the same people that we're going to publicize as part of this event as well.
I did have one thought.
Hold on, let me
there was one thought after you and I spoke. This is just when you and I spoke, as we speak often. Yeah. And it's just, in moments where there's no cameras, no nothing. When I went home, it dawned on me, like this hit me like a ton of bricks, that people in Rockford, because Rockford is legitimately 40 to 60 years behind other major cities of its size in America. It just, for someone who's grown up here, you don't feel it, you don't see it, because this is your normal. But I'm not from here, and I can attest to this. Rockford is 40 to 60 years behind other major cities of its size. What you see happening now, the steps, the gains, quote unquote, that you're seeing here, are still 40 to 60 years behind. They're late. Late is late. What hit me, and I paused. I thought about you and I paused because we had just talked. People are applauding in Rockford the fact that they lengthened the chains, the shackles that are oppressing them. They're acting as if they're free, and all the slave master did was add links to the chain and make it longer.
Yeah, that's a good point.
The chain is 20 feet longer, and people say, "We made it, y'all. We made it." You're not free yet. Until the chains are released off of your wrists and your ankles, you're not free. less enslaved does not amount to freedom.
Yes, that's a fact.
Less enslaved doesn't amount to freedom. When you can go 100 yards out further, any further than that, I'm shooting in the back with this shotgun. That doesn't make you free. That's where we are as a city. And when I paused, I said, that's Rockford. People are celebrating being less enslaved. Because they're not discussing the Justice Center and the revenue, where the money is going. Anytime you see something crazy in a city that doesn't make sense, follow the money trail. People, the black community, the Latino community, the leadership is not following where the money's going.
That's good. And I will add this too. Again, that is because part of and everything Kay is saying is absolutely right. And the reason that they're not following the money is because they don't got to follow the money. They on the trail. They part of the trail. Somebody got to follow the money to get to them.
Right.
You know, and again, that is why, and I want to point out something that just happened. Rabbit was speaking and I said, we're not going to say any names. And I want people to understand that the reason I am not, for this specific, issue when it comes to the Juneteenth or the Cooneteenth event, the reason I'm specifically not saying any names is because, I do believe that there are black members of this community, like how Kay said, that about being 40 to 60 years behind. I believe that the militancy of some of the black leaders in this community are 40 to 60 years behind. And when I say militancy, I don't, that has nothing to do with guns or physical, any type of, physical altercation. I'm talking about the type of determination that they are willing to put behind their political actions and their political ideology. I'm talking about when you are willing to publicly say things that you privately have conversations about. I've had multiple and this is one of the things that has also happened too. Somebody said to me on one of my posts, you should have inboxed these people privately. You should have talked to these people privately. And I believe in a city that is politically mature, in a city that is politically educated, that you do get all the black community members behind closed doors by yourselves, and you figure it out behind closed doors. You don't do it out in public. You don't want people to think that you know that your community is uncouth, or that you know, and you are bringing out your dirty laundry or airing out your dirty laundry. However, if you live in a city in which the black leadership has been co-opted, then what the white power structure is depending on is you having those conversations behind closed doors and not publicly. That is why they have aligned themselves with specific members of the black community. So that way, when black people have issues, they talk about it privately. They don't expose it publicly. And then the white power structure can continue to shape the narrative around the black struggle, can continue to shape the narrative around black oppression, can continue to shape the narrative around black exploitation. That's another reason why they don't want the memorials up. They don't want the community to start shaping the narrative of the racism in this city or the oppression or exploitation in this city. The same reason that they have us at city, they don't want us at City Market. They don't want these protests and demonstrations to go on. They want to try to arrest us, is because they don't want the members of the community to start shaping the narrative of the racism of this city or the injustice of this city. And so with that being understood,
which is ironic with what happened last night.
Right, yeah.
Look where it happened.
Yeah, well, and I'll pass you on to that for in one moment here. And with that being understood, that is why we must publicly speak about the Juneteenth or the Cooneteenth event and not do it privately. That is why we must publicly let people understand that Uncle Tom is a political term. Sambo is a political term. Coon is a political term. There are black people. House Negro is a political term. There are black people who are being maneuvered by white power structures to continue black oppression and continue black exploitation. And when somebody falls into that role and is maneuvered like that, if you do not address them by the proper political terminology, you run the risk of younger generations or of other people who are spectators, who are more easily swayed in their thinking, having the misconception that these black people are doing things that are supposed to further the black movement for liberation. We don't want people thinking that the individuals who are taking pictures with the mayor and taking pictures with police officers, we don't want younger black people to think that that is the way for us to get free, because it is not. If it was, we'd be free by now, because all types of black people done took pictures with police officers. And so that is why we must address the people who are taking pictures with these police officers, that are willing to lynch our children in the streets, that are willing to throw our children in jail for unfounded crimes and trumped up charges and leave them in jail because they don't have $100 or $200 for their freedom. That is why when people stand next to them, we must call them Uncle Toms. We must call them coons. We must call them house Negroes, because they are being maneuvered. They are being maneuvered to be that way. Just because you a house Negro don't mean you can't ever come to the field. That doesn't mean that. At any point in time, you can opt out of the coonery. You can opt out of the Uncle Tom action. You can opt out of the Sambo action, and you can join the masses of black people, because the masses of black people are not Uncle Toms. The masses of black people don't even have the opportunity to opt into Uncle Tom activity. It'll never be offered to them. Never be offered to them. And so, again, when we see bourgeois black people, uppity black people, higher middle class or middle class black people, even lower class black people who have the aspirations to be middle class or bourgeois black people, willing to work with the enemy. Again, and when I say the enemy, I want people to understand, if I was to be murdered right now by a Rockford Police Department officer, if my family was paid some type of restitution for that happening, the city of Rockford would be the ones who would sign the paycheck. And not only would they be the ones to sign the paycheck, they would do everything within their power to criminalize me and dehumanize me and stigmatize me so they could pay less money. And so that is the definition of being the enemy of black people. And so if black people are willing to take pictures and do these events and take money from the enemy, we must not have conversations in private about it. We must bring those things to the forefront publicly so we can change the type of consciousness that we have in the black community in this city. So that way the black people who engage in these things no longer feel like they can have the cover of doing it in private. Not with us here. Not with us here. It will be brought to the forefront. It will be brought to the public. And we will let history decide who is right and who is wrong. We will let history decide who is correct and incorrect. We will let history decide who is ethical and who is not ethical. We will let history decide who is just and who is not just. And so, that is why we will publicly speak about these actions. We'll publicly speak about these events. But again, because it is an observation and not an attack, not an individual attack on anybody, and because we believe in the redeeming factor of speaking about these things. I believe in the redeeming factor of the black members of this community. I believe in the redeeming factor of the people who may have participated in the Juneteenth or the Cooneteenth event. And so since I believe in that redeeming activity and believe in that redeeming quality, I do not want them to personalize these things, these observations, and then to internalize them and take them as an attack. Because I believe next year I won't have to ask the question, is it Juneteenth or is it Cooneteenth? Because we will have some black people who are politically educated enough to opt out of some of these Uncle Tom activities. And before we get to some of the things that happened on Saturday, did you have one thing that you wanted to add about the Juneteenth event?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in regards to Juneteenth, coming from the region of the country that I came from, it's one of the largest, the city I'm from, Buffalo, New York. They have one of the largest Juneteenth festivals in the country, and what you see is not what Rockford had. And again, I'm going to go back to what my statement was earlier. Rockford is 40 to 60 years behind. So the celebration that was here, to me, it had good intentions, and I'll leave it at that. I'm not slamming anyone. It had good intentions. But what I did not see was someone holding the city accountable with a track record of, over 2020, this is what we saw. This is what we expect you to do in 2021, and by 2022, this time next year, we're going to hold you accountable. That's what I was seeing in the city that I was from, because they had a track record of progress so that you could gauge how many yards you were moving forward as a collective to say, okay, are we stagnant? Have we done nothing as a community to move forward? Are we fighting? Here, that was never, ever, and I'm saying this in backing my brother and what he's saying. He's not bashing anyone. This is not a personal attack. But the city was not held accountable to anything in regards to last year. where they are now and where they're going to be next year. There was no public outcry. We are holding you as a city accountable to our community, our children, our babies, our men, our women to do better.
100%, 100%. And so, do you have anything you want to add on the Juneteenth or Cooneteenth event?
I mean,
I don't know if that is that shaky ground for you. Do you want to?
I mean, all I really wanted to say was I do want to agree with Kay's statement. It had good intentions, but some of the co-optiveness is definitely kind of took a lot away from it as well.
Yeah, I don't know if we in the climate. I don't think that you probably shouldn't address it as Juneteenth or Cooneteenth. We don't want people to start attacking rabbit. Only Leslie said Juneteenth or Cooneteenth. All right, only Leslie said it. And again, that's a question. I'm just renaming the event instead of naming it Juneteenth. I'm not saying it is Cooneteenth. It's a possibility it is Cooneteenth. I'm saying it is yet to be determined what happened over this weekend. Was it Juneteenth or Cooneteenth? Okay, so now we are getting towards what happened later in the evening on Saturday, and me and Rabbit weren't there. Well, I was around, but I was not down there. I was sort of drained from the events of the weekend that had taken place, and so we're going to let Kay speak about an event that took place involving the police department, the Rockford Police Department, and some individuals near Taco Betty's, right?
Right. Now, before that, I do want to say something real quick. Now, everyone knows that the city received a certain amount of money for this cannabis tax money to Rockford. The city, I'm saying this publicly because I have every right to say something public. There have been meetings about this. The meetings are public. You can go to the council meetings and watch last Monday's events unfold. They shot it down. They had a provision, and it was shot down. They didn't leave. Most of those people didn't leave until 9 or 10 o'clock on Monday night. So while everybody was focusing on this big Juneteenth to do, the whole provision for the cannabis money to be sent and allocated to the community most affected by the war on drugs fell flat.
Well, let's get some
now before we get into that. Now the specifics were, if you watch the events, there is, at this point right now, those of you that may have heard about it or may have been ready for them to drop an application for you to sign up for it, as it stands right now, officially, it's back to the drawing board on that. And I'm prefacing that because had that gone through, obviously that would have been a win to dovetail right into Juneteenth to say, this is one more step forward, we've gained another yard. Meanwhile, that fell flat and people were still clapping and celebrating as if we gained yardage. We haven't. Right now, that's stalled. That's stagnant. That's not a win right now. So that means for all the leaders that were there, all the leadership that was there during Juneteenth, rally together so we can gain some yardage and get something out of this.
Well, let's get to we need to know the details specific. Let's find out the specific details for that before we get deep into the weed cannabis thing. We want to make sure we informing people specifically and not just giving them.
When you go back and watch.
They're not gonna watch it, bro.
Okay.
But
I'm just saying. At this point, it is a moot point. There is no program moving forward. It has to be readdressed. So if anyone wants any further details, I urge you, come to city council meetings, and you will see that it has to be readdressed from the ground up to present something to the community and something to be voted on. It has to be readdressed, and I urge you, come to the council meetings. Come to the meetings, whether you're a leader, clergy, a social activist. Come to the meetings so that the framework of what needs to be done so this can be allocated so that it can be passed and people can benefit and it can impact the city in a positive way. I just wanted to end that on that note because I felt people were championing Juneteenth as if we had gained something collectively, locally, and locally we haven't gained much over the last few years. The turn of events that have taken place, there was nothing major locally to celebrate. So I hope no one is taking offense to him saying it the way he's saying it, because you can't champion a cause if you're not winning. That's why you celebrate. You celebrate a win. Yes, we have Juneteenth as a festival. I was celebrating Juneteenth whether it was acknowledged as a national festival or not. But the point of it is, you can't lose the forest for the sake of the trees. We are not done yet. So no, I'm not fully celebrating and fully clapping over a complete victory, because it just reminds me each year to keep pushing forward and gain more yardage. Now, in regards to the events of yesterday, we hear the sirens go off. We hear the cars just flying down the street. Then the young man that's standing next to me, he says, this is what made me walk down to get involved. He said, earlier today, meaning yesterday, someone jumped off the bridge. He said, maybe this is someone else jumping off the bridge. This is the city we live in. He said, earlier today someone jumped off the bridge. With that many police SUVs going down there were at roughly 10, if not more. He said, I think someone may have jumped off the bridge, or maybe it's a homicide. Because I could see the lights, the red and blue, from a distance from where I was. It was down there at Taco Betty's. Now, I'm at City Hall, but I could see them stopping down in the vicinity of Taco Betty's, or basically near the bridge. So I started to walk down, and I said, well, we'll see what the events are as they unfold. I'll stand at a distance and just watch. Lo and behold, I get down there, I pull out my phone. You'll see the video. There's a video circulating, but there's I believe other people are going to be posting videos as well. But there's a young lady that gets in an altercation with it wasn't even an altercation. There was, based on the turn of events that happened, there was a group of people that basically said, I was down there and there was like 3 other people that were down there. And one gentleman or someone pointed out that there was a group of white individuals, white or mixed with Latino group, but they basically alleged that they thought they may have seen a domestic. I'm going to say that again. They alleged that they thought they may have seen a domestic violence circumstance. They weren't 100% sure. Now, mind you, I'm watching this unfold. I walked down there, and I'm just happy that no one jumped off the bridge. I'm watching. And as I'm watching, I hear her say, if I'm a victim, why aren't you taking my statement? If I'm a victim, why aren't you? She's saying it over and over again. If I'm supposed to be a victim, I'm standing right here. How come no one's taking my statement? Why are you taking a statement from them? I never called you. They called you. I'm his woman. I'm telling you, there is no altercation. We were running and we fell. I fell. He fell on top of me. We're fine. Officer, I'm telling you, I'm fine. There are no look at me. I'm hearing her say this. There are no bruises on my arms. I don't have a black eye. I'm not bleeding. He didn't hit me. Why are you doing this? Next thing you know, the police officers tell him to turn around. He did resist. He did not resist. And I'm an eyewitness to this. He didn't resist. They handcuffed him, and then he started yelling, "Bae, bae, bae, come here, come here." Now, obviously, out of fear, she stood where she was, but I think he just wanted to say something while she was closer. But then they arrested him. They locked him up, put him in the car, and that's when I got involved. I'm watching this, so I got involved. I walk over as they're pulling off, and I said, "What are the charges?" She said they literally told me some of the officers that were watching. They said, we don't know what the charges are. We don't know. We don't know. Meaning they arrested the man and didn't even tell him what the charges were as the cuffs were going on. I know I didn't hear it, but the officers substantiated that as a fact. There were no charges stated as they were handcuffing him and putting him in the car. There was no charges. The officers, this lady's pleading with them. What are the charges? Please tell me what the charges are. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know. They all start hopping into the car. I said, before he leaves, I'm pointing at an officer. Before he leaves, ask for name and badge number, because she's in shock. Ask for his badge number and his name. Ask who is he. He's a witness to all this. He's a witness. You need to have witnesses. The officer looks right at me, looks me in my face, and then revs his car and peels out. That is their job. They are public servants. When you ask, he heard me. When you ask for an officer's name and badge number, that is not optional for them to give that to you. They must provide it. The other car sitting next to him was watching him, and when he pulled off, He peeled out. And then the other ones that heard me say this on her behalf, they all peeled off. That shows you the environment that we have. When you ask officer, name and badge number, they know as civil servants, it is not optional. They cannot put their hand over their name. They cannot lie and give you somebody else's name. They must provide it to you as a citizen.
I want to let Kay keep speaking, but I do want to say this, that even though what Kay is saying is 100% accurate, that they are obligated to provide it. That is something that we have regularly had problems with them doing. Absolutely. Because it is allowed. Absolutely. By the city of Rockford and by the Rockford Police Department and the Winnebago County Sheriff's Deputies Department or whatever, and by the Winnebago County Board for these law enforcement agents to not vocally and audibly say their name and their badge number, or for them to give fake names, or for them to give fake badge numbers. It's a thing that has happened regularly. And so Kay is 100% right when he says they're supposed to give their name and badge number. By law, they have to give their name and badge number. But a law is not a law if it is not enforced. So same thing for policy. A policy is not a policy if it is not enforced. And so even though they are supposed to give their name and badge number, the culture of impunity and unaccountability in this city makes it so that they regularly do not give their name and badge number. And so what I would say to anybody who finds themselves in a situation similar to the one Kay is describing, or finds themselves in any situation in which they are encountering and interacting with law enforcement, whether it be in Rockford and Winnebago County, or you could be in Wyoming watching this, make sure that you film every single second that takes place. Make sure that you go live. Don't just film it and record it on your phone. Record it and film it live, so that way if anything happens, the video is already out there. You don't have to worry about trying to upload it. So that way the video can have already be seen by witnesses. You don't have to worry about the police officers trying to delete it. And also make sure that you get a good shot of their face. Make sure you get, if they have a car, get a good shot of their car, whatever number is on the car. Make sure you ask them repeatedly for their name and badge number. Try to zoom in on their name badge if possible. Try to get as much as of their face in the camera as possible, and get better at, if you're somebody who lives in a community in which there's regular interactions with police, get better at doing it. As time has passed, we have gotten very good at the moment police department or police officers or law enforcement are on the scene of having our cameras and our phones filming. And I will say this, anytime we have made the mistake of not having camera footage rolling, we have paid for it in the sense of the truth being manipulated. And so I would, again, as we're going through these things, one of the things we want to do is start to get rid of old habits and build in new habits. And part of those new habits is whenever you are interacting with the officer of the state, with a public official, film it. Whenever you are talking to somebody that is employed by the state, that is a public official, film it. So that way, because these people have, whenever it is your word against their word, your word will always fall short. And that is why you have to have these things filmed. And secondly, we live in a society of, people won't believe it until they see it. And so you have to have some of these things, be filmed so people can be witnesses to the true nature of these corrupt, departments. So I'm gonna pass it back to Kay and let him, finish that off there.
Now here I am. My mind's going a million miles a minute as far as the law. See, here they assume things about their position to make you, as a citizen, psychologically assume that they have more power than they do. But when you know the law, you understand that that their job is really not to protect and serve us. Their job is to protect government property, government monuments, statues, and buildings. Their job is to uphold the law. Even if the law is against us as citizens, their job is to uphold the law. Even if the law is corrupt, their job is to uphold the law. That's why their job is not to protect and serve. You can ask any officer, is your job to protect and serve? They're going to say, no, it's not. Never was. That was an advertising and marketing tool. That never was real. Now, as I'm talking to this lady, I'm watching him look back at me like, I'm not giving you a name and badge number, and he just leaves. And then they all just start, they're leaving.
You ever seen him before? Did he look familiar? You ever seen him before?
No, because I couldn't get close enough to the car. I'm standing next to her. I'm trying to walk over so she can get some justice here and get a name and badge number.
Ain't no justice.
Exactly.
No, go ahead.
But then I'm thinking, these 5 individuals gave some kind of crazy statement of what they thought they may have seen, but yet, if it's a domestic, where was the female police officer to verify that she was victimized as a woman by being on the premises to see that she was okay?
Is that their policy?
From what I understand, that's a policy that a female officer, when it's an issue with a woman on site, that a female officer has to be there to administer assistance or whatnot. Even when it comes to a pat down, technically a male officer is not really supposed to go that detailed. They're supposed to call in a female officer. I don't understand why a supervisor wasn't called, but maybe I'm thinking with hindsight, the individual that they did arrest, he didn't call for a supervisor because he was trying to plead his case by saying, we were just playing. We were just playing. But it didn't matter that the person that got arrested was saying, we were just playing. He was playing while black in front of Taco Betty's, basically was what it amounted to. Two, the woman that's allegedly the victim was saying the same thing. Now, mind you, this is how mind-blowing this is. They were a couple. Both of them were saying, we were just playing. And she said, I tripped. She had open-toed, like, sandals or something on. They had gone out that night. They were just down there having fun. She tripped. He fell on top of her. The 5 guys that were there, not only did they tell the police, well, it was a domestic that we think we may have saw, before the police got there, this is her own admission to me, these 5 men tried to jump him. And she said, I'm sitting there telling them, he's my man, leave him alone. We were just playing. Now, can you fathom this? The man was about to be beaten by 5 people because they assumed something that they thought they saw, and she's telling them out of her own mouth, it's not what you think it is. Now, if it was a domestic, I'm sure it would have went different. She's literally explaining to them, now this is before the police even came on the scene, what you thought you saw was he fell on top of me. We were running. I was running in front of him. I tripped. He did not beat me. I'm not bleeding. I'm not cut. Please don't jump on him. This is what she said before the police got there. These 5 individuals proceeded to stick with their story, even though the alleged victim told them, I'm not a victim. He's my man.
And you were saying none of them were black.
None of them were black.
So
And they were completely okay, 100% Karen the whole situation. I don't know what the male counterpart of a Karen is. I think they call him. Is that what they're calling him? What is the male? Whatever. Someone please put in the comments what the male counterpart of a Karen is, because all 5 of them knew what they were doing, because they didn't recant it, and they pushed the narrative so hard. That's why the officer said, "Turn around and put your hands behind your back." What is it called?
No, it's we don't have no.
Okay. Well, whatever the male version was, all 5 of them.
Say Caleb.
Kyle.
Kyle.
Okay, Kyle. Well, we have 5 Kyles that just were all, and I'm not being stereotypical when I say this. This is how they were dressed. They had shorts on with polo shirts, all of them. They were all pretty much either had the tight T-shirt look or polo shirts. They all look like they came from upper middle class neighborhood. They all look like they don't live down here. And they all walked in. They were preconceived.
They don't live down here, baby.
They all had preconceived ideas and prejudice and bias and bigotry based on seeing a black man running, that their minds created the scenario, even though the woman was telling them it's not what you thought you saw.
Also, then they went to the jail and right.
So I go a step further with her. I'm like, listen, you didn't even give it a name and a badge number. You don't even know what the charges were. I said, I'll follow you to the Justice Center. So I go to the Justice Center and I wait in my car. This is hours later, 2 hours later. She didn't know the process. She's like, she walks up, presses the buzzer. She didn't even know where to press the buzzer at. I'm showing her where the buzzer is. She presses it. They're like, oh, we don't even have his name in the system. I said, it's going to be a while. I'll wait in the parking lot until this is going to be a while. So about 2 hours, almost 3 hours later, she calls him and they hit him with domestic.
Of course.
How? When the victim, the supposed victim, they didn't even take a statement from her saying, I'm not a victim. They didn't even, if they cared that much about her safety, why didn't they take a report as the victim? Ma'am, this shows you how corrupt this was. Ma'am, do you want to press charges? Ma'am, do you want to make a statement? They didn't care. They didn't care. This is Rockford. This happened right in front of Taco Betty's. Ma'am, are you okay? We're going to take a statement from you, and would you like to press charges against him? None of that was said because she kept telling them, I'm not a victim. That would have been proper police protocol as a civil servant, to literally care about this person and take a statement. The fact is they didn't care about her. They didn't care about him. They had 5 white people substantiate that they thought they saw something. But the woman and the man are both their stories are corroborating, and they're saying it's not what you think it was. Insult to injury, the security guard at Taco Betty's said he saw the whole thing. I walked over to him and said, did you see anything? He said, I saw it. It wasn't what they said it was. I was standing right here. I said, are you a police officer? He's like, no, I'm security. He said, I saw it myself too. I was right here. They were playing. And he said there's an employee inside that saw it too. There's an employee inside, they saw it too. Why did the police ask him for a statement?
And I want to say, and I will say, and again, I think that part of this is, and I've talked to multiple people who have had sort of, I want to make sure I'm saying this the right way, because I don't want anybody to mistake what I'm saying to be insensitive or to be ignorance of a situation. But I do believe that in the city of Rockford, Illinois right now, they are using domestic violence arrest to sort of propagandize the police department and the city. I'm looking up this, as Kay speaking. And this, again, part of this is what, and I don't know, this is part of what the reason that we have these lives, part of the reason that we're doing this is because a deeper conversation needs to be had about some of the activities that's going on in Rockford, Illinois, some of the politics at play here in Rockford, Illinois, and how they truly do affect the lives of individuals. And it does seem that right now, the mayor of this city is determined to have this family peace center and domestic violence sort of be like his staple thing. A lot of administrations administrations politically historically have specific things that they point to as the main thing that they furthered. Lyndon Johnson was very much like that. They sort of say civil rights. They talk about him with civil rights a lot. They speak. Richard Nixon, war on drugs. Bill Clinton with the police bill. And so it always takes a different form. But I find it very interesting that we have a mayor that refuses to truly acknowledge the depth of the racism in this community. At every turn, at every time that a true example of that racism in this community happens, he has been mute on it. I find that very telling because I am personally of the belief that when you start tracing any violent crimes in America, when you start tracing them back to the true roots of issues, they fall under, first, number one is racism. This country was built on racism. The country was founded on racism and then built on racism, and then succeeded in its racism in a level in which no other country before or since has succeeded in its racism. It made its racism an industry. It expanded its racism. They made an empire out of their racism. And at every turn, instead of trying to absolve itself of its racism or destroy the racism, it has just adjusted and altered what the racism looks like. And that racism has always had violence attached to it. There has never been racism in America in which violence was not attached to it. This country began on the genocide of the indigenous people, on the not only the the pillaging of them as a people, but a pillaging of their land. The taking of land, that's violence. Like, taking land is violence. Taking lives is violence, you know. And so that racism from the very beginning was tied, violence was tied into there. I say often that, and then slavery, right next to each other. Yeah, you know, again, so that in all of those things, the slavery was, Dr. King said that the reason that they had to, you know, denigrate just the idea of being black is because to turn a human being into a slave, you have to dehumanize it first. And the 3/5 part of the Constitution, if your mother is a slave, you're a slave. All of those type of psychological actions that have been since the inception, the beginning of the country. There has never been a black person born in this country with a fresh or clean slate. Those things have always been there historically. Those things have always.
Say too, there's still on the books. There's still some provision that states that citizenship in America was never intended for black people.
Right.
It's still on paper that citizenship, being acknowledged as an American citizen, is not available to us as a people.
Right.
It was never intended for that.
Right. And so I think it's and again to stay on the topic at hand, as I was sort of getting away there myself, but I say all those things to say that anybody trying to address violent crime in any area in this nation has to be putting racism at the forefront. And I find it very telling that we have a family peace center in this city, which all through the website refuses to acknowledge racism or bring up racism or prejudice or how any of those things have any play in these issues at all. Right. Refuses to bring up poverty or how poverty has anything to do with it all with these issues, right? And that has a board of directors. Jennifer Casielaga, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this name right. But she is a white woman. This is the board of directors, one white woman. Rosemary Collins, a judge. She is a white woman, second on the board of directors. Mayor Tom McNamara, a white man, third on the board of directors. Kurt Wisenhan, assistant deputy chief, police officer, fourth on the board of directors, another white man. And then Nancy Caney, a white woman, is the fifth person of the board of directors of the Family Peace Center. The Family Peace Center, which does not acknowledge racism as being a root cause of violence. Let me read what it says right here above the board of directors. All 5 white people. The Family Peace Center is a multi-agency, multidisciplinary, co-located service center that provides services to victims of interpersonal violence. Both public and private partner agencies assign staff on a full-time or part-time basis to provide services from one location. The facility focuses on reducing the number of times survivors tell their story and the number of places survivors must go for help, as well as increases access to services and support for survivors and their children. While permanent location is being established, the Mayor's Office of Domestic Violence and Human Trafficking Prevention plans to have a temporary location open in 2020. And now, after reading this, and then going through and seeing, again, 1 board of director white woman, 2 board of director white woman, 3rd person board of director white man, 4th person board of director white man, 5th person board of director a white woman. The first thing I think is, what is the percentage, what is the demographic of the people who deal with domestic violence or human trafficking? And if the percentage is not 100% white, why is the board of directors 100% white? Because what you're now telling me is that 5 white people are in charge of how resources are being divvied up to crimes that predominantly affect people who are not white. And now you can have the next layer of this can be all the black people or brown people you want it to be. The next layer can be all that you want it to be. Who's making the decisions? Right. And that I think that is why, and I'll pass it to you real quick, but I want to say, and I want to tie this into what you were just saying. I think that's very telling because they need domestic violence to go up for funds to go up for this. Exactly. They need to be able to continue to point to domestic violence and continue to be able to, because every time this is what happened. Every time somebody's getting arrested for a domestic and they put them through the process and through the paperwork and everything, right? If right now I get arrested for a domestic, whether or not I get found guilty of the domestic.
Right.
Whether or not, and we're not even talking about whether or not I did it, whether or not I get found guilty of the domestic, when they put me in the system, they find out how many children I have, if I have children, find out my name and all these things. So then now they can go and say, because this is what they're saying that a certain percentage of young people who are committing these violent crimes come from families in which domestic violence has happened. And so they have the root of this violence that's happening in the city is truly domestic violence. And because of these numbers, this is how we're being able to track that. So the more people they can feed into the jail for having domestic violences, who they can then have children and have the numbers to children, they can then tie that to any to crimes. You know, they can, excuse me, not to crimes. They can then tie that to their statistics for crimes.
Right.
Because they ask you if you got children. Right. They get your name, right, your number, your address, where you live at, all of those different things, right? And then the same thing if your kids get into some trouble, right? They're going to be able to know your names and your kids' names and all of those things. And so we have to understand that, and that's what I mean when I say that crime is a business.
Right.
That's what when we say if crime was to stop, certain people's resources and funds would go down. And so you understand, so people can understand now, that's why they need that man to get arrested for a domestic, to be charged for a domestic, because they need these statistics.
Exactly.
And I'll let you go. Did you have something you want to add?
And I wanted to say, too, I watched this with my own two eyes. I walked down there thinking somebody possibly I was going to see somebody laying in the street or somebody jumped off the bridge. I'm watching this situation. Now, I believe it went this way from talking with her at the Justice Center. I went with her. I wanted to be a support because she was so distraught by, why didn't they listen to me? I was trying to tell them he didn't do anything to me. They wouldn't listen to me. She was distraught, so I wanted to be there to help console her and, you know, be a support to her in this situation. Now, she was calling her people. They were showing up, too. His brother ended up showing up. But it was very telling because I saw this with my own two eyes. Again, this is not secondhand information. I watched this happen, and I got involved. I interacted. I never heard them say stop resisting. I never saw with my own two eyes. I never saw an issue of this man resisting. Now, mind you, they're telling people, they're telling her we don't have the charges yet. So they had to come up with the charges at some point. But when they put the cuffs on him, they were never audibly made. This is crazy. He never resisted. But she told me after she got on the phone call with him that one of his charges was resisting arrest. How telling. Why am I bringing that up? Look at the statistics. It's public information. Look at the statistics on Rockford's listing of resisting arrest. I believe for a fiscal year, and I made this a point in a meeting. How can you have over I think it was 460 or 480 resisting arrests? I said you have more resisting arrests than there are days in a year. You got more resisting arrests than the days in the year. Are you serious? And then the reason why I made that a point, when you look at the other numbers, they have something called pull away. To me, it's 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. They had almost they almost had this, like literally half the number of resisting arrests was pullaways. And all the other numbers were so menial that it was laughable. And other people made it a point to point this out by saying, you have this high number of RPD reporting these resisting arrests, but these other charges are way, way lower. But one of the major continuing factors of a charge in arresting people, because that's what it's showing, one of the predominant charges is resisting arrest. Whatever, basically, it's showing statistically, whatever you're getting arrested for, one of your charges most likely will be resisting arrest. It will be one of the charges that you're getting. And that's what happened to him. I watched this man comply. So anyone that's prepared to type, well, he shouldn't have resisted or he should have just complied. I watched this man calmly. They said, turn around. He turned around, put his hands behind his back, didn't fight, didn't argue, and walked right to the car. Right.
And honestly, anybody that's getting ready to say anything like that, please say it so I can ban you from the page. Actually, so please type it out. Please type it out so I can ban you from the page. And I hope you type it out right now because I got the laptop open. I'll see the comment and I'll bend you from the page instantly. Okay. So anyways, all of those, well, oh yeah, this is a good point, because as you were saying, I was thinking one thing as you was talking, which was, yeah, I hope they type it out so I can ban them from the page. And I want to just interject and say that. But then the other thing that I also was thinking is that these resisting arrest, the reason that they add them in there is because it's such a easy get. You know, it's easy to be able to, you know, okay, you're going to drop the domestic. We'll drop the domestic if you plead guilty to the resisting, do such and such, pay us $300. Right. Let's say you say that is how many of them? You said it's how many? 400. So let's say they get $200 for every resisting arrest.
Exactly.
And so, and then their conviction rate will continue to be high because the resisting.
It was around there. It's public information.
But I don't know. We got to start getting the right numbers for everything. Yeah, we got to get the right numbers.
High.
You know, yeah. But we got to get the right number, because I don't even know. I'm just saying $200 arbitrarily. I don't know what people really get in charge. You know, if they plead, you know, it's going to differ. You know,
but it was exceptionally high.
Right. But again, the concept is that a lot of people. This is a charge. I have a resisting, or I was just looking up my charges again the other day, because this shit is, you know, it's just nuts sometimes looking through and reading these things and how often they change it and edit it, and you know, it's really sick. But they have me on a resisting arrest charge, and it's no time in which I have ever resisted arrest. And every filming is on, like every arrest is on film. And so, and again, some of these things I'm wondering, like, is it, like, I don't know, like, and again, cause a lot of, one of these times I was arrested, it was like maybe the second or third week. And once I was arrested and on the bus, we was trying to get the bus driver's attention for something. And I think we was making noise on the bus or some shit like that. And I remember, and they came in and they told us to stop making noise. If we kept making noise, dude said he was gonna lock me in my legs in shackles. They ended up locking my legs in shackles because we kept making noise. I don't know. Maybe that's their resisting arrest. I don't know. Man, maybe they'll play this in court. Hopefully, play this, please. And two, please play this in court. Because if resisting arrest can happen after you are already arrested, that might be groundbreaking. If you can resist arrest while you already arrested, or maybe they got different little specific definitions of, you know.
I'm telling you now.
So we'll see. Maybe we'll watch this. Maybe I'll watch this in court one day. But I just wanted to say one more time, and I'll pass it back. They need the conviction. People have to understand how the conviction rates and how all of these things work. The more things they can hit you with, the more likely they will get you to out of fear take a conviction, take a guilty plea or take a plea. And as it stands, a lot of times the hassle of going to court weighs on people, and so they just want to be done with it. The fear of the possible, like, 1 year jail sentence or $20,000 fine, these big things weigh on people and intimidate people and scare people. And then lawyers don't, whether it's the state's attorney or a public defender or a lawyer, they don't want to go to trial either. They want they get most of their people, they get pleas, they work pleas out. That is how this process works. And so, and the other thing that happens is, and again, this is it's a very interesting dynamic to be in, is that majority of the time when people are arrested, and this is whether or not they did what they are accused of doing, whether or not people should go to jail for some of the things people go to jail for when they are accused of doing certain things. But as it stands, most people have some sort of fear that unless you are completely framed and completely innocent, you just was the wrong person, wrong time, or they just putting something on you, you have fear of some type of information coming out in court that may paint in the wrong light and make people think the wrong thing. Or, you know, if you was riding with somebody and somebody else went and stuck up the store, or somebody else, you nervous that if the certain things come out in a certain way that the jury will misinterpret what's going on. But with the specific thing in which we are doing, because of the manner in which we have continued to do it, we are so transparent that we aren't in that situation. Right. I am not in fear of a trial.
Right.
Because of the fact that I have not, the charges that they have on me, I have not done what these charges are set up for. The way that the reasons in which they are arresting me, these laws were not made to be enforced in this manner that they're trying to do. And even in the manner of enforcing them that way, they're violating some of their own laws. Exactly. They had to move the state, the state law sign for the pedestrians having the right way on the crosswalk. And now this is what happens when you go into court. Maybe legally that sign does not give people the right to walk on the crosswalk. Maybe there's some type of, again, we're going into protesting and specifics. So let's just go into the hypothetical conversation of, let's say that is not what that sign right there meant, and we misinterpreted what it meant, right? Why did the police move it then? You know, if somebody's going to, yes, why would the police move it and to the point now where a year later the sign is destroyed and not even there?
Right.
If that, you know, and so once we start getting into court and that comes as a juror, yes, as a juror. Now, even if I'm pro police and I support police, I understand that, because this is where we get back into certain concepts of, let's say I believe that there's no good cops in a racist system, and a person in the jury box believes that there are just some bad apples and some bad cops. They about to get the lineup of the bad apples and the bad cops. Because let's say you are a person who believes in police, and then you see this happen. You see them move this sign out the way. You see them end up destroying this sign. And as somebody who's pro-police, you think that that's a sign, to me, that's a sign of admission. Even if you're going to tell me that they do not have the right to walk on the crosswalk because of that sign being there, my next question becomes, why do you move the sign? Right. Multiple weeks. My next question becomes, if you move the sign, why don't you put that sign back? If you are worried about people being hit in the street. Because I have a video where one time I'm picking up the sign on like a Tuesday or Wednesday, like, look at the sign that they just left here. Right. And then so once you get into all of those things, all of those things come out. Right. And so again, yes, we are in a situation where, and they don't want trials. We want trials. So, we are in a situation that is very unique in which, some of these charges that, they're trying to throw that would usually, the amount of them would just get somebody to break underneath and just plead to, because of the fact that they don't want certain information to come out, or because of the fact that they feel like if the wrong thing is said in the wrong way, people might look at them, you know, in a different light. Because of those things, you know, it's not the same for us. These petty charges and these extra charges are going to backfire. Them using them like that is not going to be a positive. It's going to end up being a negative, because it shows that they're trumping up the charges, because it shows this type of just lack for humanity, you know. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say something to what Leslie is saying now. What I want to say is this. In other cities last year, now this is the context of city market, and I made this point over and over and over again every Friday when they came out with riot gear and they came out ready to rumble. And I said, I don't know if you really don't understand the city that you're here to protect and police. I'm using the word protect, and it's like I don't even want to say the word, but in the city that you're in, why are you keep building this narrative of an assumption when you don't have a track record of the same 30 people, 40 people doing the same thing week after week, but you keep using as a reference point on the ground. I'm talking boots on the ground, the cops saying, but when you look at Portland and you look at Minneapolis and you look at these other cities, and all I could say as a rebuttal was, but this is not that. Well, what makes you say? And I said, look at Taco Betty's. The windows are still intact. There's no fires. There's no Molotov cocktails. There's no issues here. This building is not being gutted. No one's being beat over the head across the street. So what it appears to me is that you're assuming something. And then they would get silent, because obviously an officer knows their job is not to assume a crime. That's not their job. So they would get silent. And I said, well, it makes sense, right? You're preparing for something based on watching the events of other cities when you don't have the precedent here in Rockford. You don't have the same precedent, but yet you keep gearing up for the same thing, expecting it. But then the insult to injury, and this is to follow up with what Leslie's saying to help support his statement. As a eyewitness all of last year, when you look at some of the charges here, let me rephrase that. When you look at all the charges here, and you compare a side-by-side reference of Portland or Minneapolis, or even the events that happened in like Rochester, New York, or Buffalo, when you hold a side-by-side comparison, mainly Minneapolis, this is really where RPD got a lot of their playbook. When you hold up the charges, they look the same. And this is the point that I brought up to the officer when I did my due diligence and researches. I said, you're handing out charges as if this is Minneapolis. And he said, yes, because of the tactics of the protesting. I said, all right, guess what? Minneapolis, look at the video. Look at how the city looks. It looks like a bomb went off downtown. These buildings are gutted. They're on fire. These buildings have to be demoed. So what are you talking about? And he just stared at me. I said, Sunday through Thursday, if you told somebody who came from out of town and got lost and went down East State, they wouldn't even know people protested because nothing happened. And he just stared at me. He stared, and I said, exactly, there's nothing to say. The charges are the same, but Minneapolis was on fire. And you're trying to tell me you convicted people. I'm trying not to laugh because it's real. But the response was laughable because he sat there and said, yes, we're handing out the same charges because it's protesting, and look at the other cities. And I said, you're right, look at them. From Sunday to Thursday, anybody driving through Rockford would have to be told that people were protesting at City Market because there's no fires, there's no broken windows.
It shouldn't be though.
I'm not saying that it should be. What I'm saying is the precedent in Rockford was a different style of protesting.
Because of what they're saying, yes.
When people keep saying, peaceful protesting, I think Rockford was the poster child of peaceful protesting.
We gotta be careful with certain words. We gotta be careful.
I'm saying it in the context that.
Yeah, you gotta. I know what you're saying.
You understand what I'm saying?
Be careful with using certain.
Because at the end of the day, these officers were literally explaining on the ground why they were so hyped up, why they were so amped up. They keep using Portland and Minneapolis, then the events with this in Rochester, New York, and Buffalo. And it's like, okay, the whole point is you'd have to tell somebody in Rockford as they were driving through, visiting the city, that people were even protesting.
But be careful. We gotta be careful. No, you're right. What Kay is saying is right.
Saying City Market looked pristine after the protest.
No, yes.
That's what I'm saying.
What Kay is saying is right. We just don't want people to think that we're saying that you should, that anything is no specific way to protest. But because of where they were treated, I'm laughing because I want people to understand. I'm laughing because Kay is right about all of this. I'm thinking about how like they put plastic over the sign at District 1 on the anniversary of May 30th. Like, when you really think about what they have done, they arrested me and Ari for writing in chalk. Exactly. That is what happened. Like, and this is what's going to happen this week. And this is what's so crazy is that when certain things happen to you in reality, it's hard to really, deal with it. Yeah. It's really nuts to deal with. But this week, I am going to go to, because they just arrested me. I just went to jail 2 days ago for recording people tearing down memorials, right, holding a megaphone and a siren playing, and talking into the megaphone. I went back and watched the video today because I'm thinking like, damn, what the hell? Let me watch it one more time. I watched the video. Right. Those people have no worries as they tearing down those memorials. Not one of them think anything is going to happen to them. Not one of them look like they stressed. They don't look like they have a care in the world. If anything, they look like they just mad because they got to be there taking the memorials down. Right. But there is no worry of them being hurt. No. There is no worry that this, even as at one, on the first like 2-3 minutes, I don't even talk. I just got the siren going. The siren not pointed at him or nothing. It's just I'm holding the siren. But I say that to say, so they arrested me for that. Later that same day, I got arrested for writing in chalk. In the paper, in the report, the paperwork says that, and then this is my fault. The paperwork say I got the paperwork back in court, and it says that we was down writing in chalk. A Metro officer came up to me, said that I couldn't be there, and when he said that to me, I said "fuck you," and I just kept writing in chalk. That's it. He said that. I ain't say nothing else. Now, because for some people who are on the outside looking in, that may be something that they think could really happen, but there has never been a time in which at City Market, a period in which anybody has ever came and had it try and spoken and had a conversation with me, that's a police officer or Metro or whatever, and I said fuck you and nothing else happened, or I just said fuck you to start off the conversation. Mainly because of the fact, and people have taken issue with the fact of me having conversations with officers or having conversations with police officers at the protest, but I believe that there has to be some type of conduit, or has to be some type of a person that's speaking, and so that I say all those things to say that never happened. The Metro officer never came and spoke to me. No Metro officer has had conversations with me. The first person to have a conversation with me was Joe Gibbons. And again, this is the assistant deputy chief. Right. was at this protest. Right. How many people who families of murder victims have met the assistant deputy chief? How many do you think? How many people whose homes have been broken into who have met the assistant deputy chief? And what warranted me meeting the assistant deputy chief was writing in chalk. And then they arrested us. Yeah, well, I wrote in chalk.
No.
Meeting. Meeting you. You're right. And so so that is not what happened. But nevertheless, on the police report that I'm reading, I'm being told that this is what happened.
You probably don't even know what he looks like.
Yeah, I don't know which one of them it is. I don't even remember the name. Again, it is laughable to think that many police officers was there, that much resources was put in to us writing in chalk. And not only the fact that we were writing in chalk, because this is one of the things that they could use for last year. Last year they could use Portland and Seattle and all these other places, but this year they don't have any of that, and they have a track record of us. What they really have needed all the way, even up to this point, to this day, right now, what they really need is some type of catastrophic event that they can try to tie to us to then prejudice the mind of whoever would be in the jury. Right. That's what they're hoping for. Right. That's what they want to happen. Right. This is one of the things that Malcolm X said that was struck with me very heavily. He said that one of the reasons white people were worried about giving black people equity and equality and justice and freedom and and liberty and all the things that they deserved is because the conscience of the masses of white people believed that if black people ever got that they would do the same things to white people that white people had done to black people. And I think that every single day that passes, that whether it be the state's attorney's office, whether it be the police department, whether it be the city of Rockford government, whether it just be the random bigoted or prejudiced or racist white person that passes by, they feel like the reason that they don't want us to be doing what we're doing, the reason they don't want us to be trying to fight for these things is because they feel like if we get them, all the things that they have historically done to us, we will do back to them. These police officers are scared that if they start being held accountable for these actions that they've done to black people, that they're doing to black people, how far back will that go? How many of them will be held accountable? Right. That is the reason that racism in this city specifically is something that people don't want to address, is because how many of us will have to have retribution for it? Right. How many of the mayors who have taken pictures with black aldermen or black family members or black areas in this city, if we were to have like they did in South Africa, where they had a constellation, or I think I'm using the wrong word, where they came together and they spoke, they put everything out on the table. Somebody, Antar know the word. I should look up the word, but I want to stay in this bag real quick. They're scared that if you bring up Mayor Larry Morrissey and he has to sit up on a panel and he has to be honest about in the implications that they had on the black community and in the lower class and working class and poor community in this city, that the accountability would be too much. The transparency would be too much, even for the things that maybe he did out of ignorance. If you brought up every alderman, whoever voted on anything or voted, whether it be pro or against something that had implications that were devastating to the black and to the brown community, to the working class and poor community, and they have to sit up there and be honest on the record and transparent about each one of those things, they're scared about the implications that has.
Right.
If we have generationally destroyed a people, and we have to give them equity and equality, what will that do to our next generations? If you're telling me that my father and my grandfather got these things that they have, accumulated this wealth, accumulated this family name off exploitation and oppression, and the only way to be equitable is not only do we have to address the exploitation and oppression wholly and fully, we then have to stop the exploitation and oppression wholly and fully, and then we then have to reverse the exploitation wholly and fully. And now if me and you are in a working relationship and it's 100% of the pie, and for 5 years you think you getting 50 and you think I'm getting 50 and really I'm getting 75 and you getting 25, first we have to have a true conversation about how you feel about being exploited.
Right.
A true conversation. And then after that, I have to let you know to the extent in which you were exploited. Absolutely. So you can have trust and full accountability from me. And then going forward, we have to decide two things. Decide one or two things. Either going forward, now you get 75 and I get 25 until we caught up. Or I have to go back into the bag in which I have my extra 100, 200, 300, 400, and I have to start giving that to you. Whether I give it to you at a certain amount at a time or however, I have to give it to you. And it has to be fairly given to you in which you feel comfortable moving forward.
Right.
And then if I die in 4 years and I leave the company to my son, he got to do that same shit.
Right. To make it fair.
Yep. And he got to be okay doing it. And he got to know why he doing it. So that way he don't just think that, end up perpetuating the cycle and having some type of white backlash. Cause that's what's happened a lot in America, is that in certain pockets, they'll address some of these things for a little bit, a portion or a little bit. And one generation might be in a place where they're willing to, alter some things or they understand some of the wrongs. But because it's not passed down to the next generation thinks it's all good. It's all figured out. That's why you got white people running around here thinking, why can't I say nigga?
Right.
You can't say nigga because your daddy still say nigger.
Right. Even though you grew up on
exactly. Even though he don't go and say it to every black person.
Right.
Michael Jordan might not be a nigger.
Right.
But if Michael down the street and him get into an argument one day in the middle of the night and he been thinking this, he really see black people Michael's a nigger now. This guy up the street's a nigger.
Or you use a very real situation with LeBron. If LeBron loses the game, or if LeBron says something and
those fans, and those fans speak,
and then he really gets called the other one.
Yeah, 100%. And so, and I think that is one of the reasons in which it is really a deep fear in this city of acknowledging the depth of the racism and equality and equity in these things, is because of the prominent families in this and the prominent businesses in this city and prominent politicians in this city who have benefited politically and economically from raping, pillaging, exploiting, oppressing, dehumanizing, criminalizing, stigmatizing, and marginalizing and monetizing all of those different isms of the black and brown communities and of the poor and working class communities. It's, you know what's funny? The same reason we have these memorials up in Truth, the same reason we have these memorials up in the area that we have them, is the reason that the city is putting these murals up everywhere. In Truth. In Truth.
Absolutely.
But the difference is one of those things is being done in a celebration as if the people that they in the communities in which they are putting on these murals and putting these murals in have been saved, that white savior mentality. Right. And the memorials in which we put up are signifying the struggle that is still being had, and the failure that's still there.
Yeah.
And you can't have both at the same time.
Right.
Two things cannot exist in the same place. And so they can't have the memorials of these people up downtown as this and being put up downtown at the same time that they're painting pictures of Fred and painting pictures of Michelle Williams. You can't put up these dead black men as we trying to put up these black people that we celebrating and championing. We gonna put up a picture of Fred, painting a mural of Fred right next to the Justice Center.
Right.
And we gonna let you know what we think of y'all. You can be this or you can be that. It's no in between.
Right.
You this or you that.
Right. One in a million.
And those murals that they putting up there. Let me say this too. And this is the same way how you can see the interconnected to these things. Those murals that they putting up there, the people that's putting them up ain't even getting paid half of what they trying to charge us to put these memorials up. Think about that. Whoever it is that they have painting these memorials of around this city are not getting paid half of what they have charged members of the May 30th Alliance to put up memorials of victims of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice on these light poles.
Right.
And then you think about all those things, and now I ask the same question of you. Is it Juneteenth or is it Cooneteenth? When that's the reality of this city. When that's the reality of this city.
If I may say, even now with the city having this $300,000 budget to advertise, it is going to be like oil and water. This is my background as a business consultant. This is my prediction, but not just out of feelings or emotions. This is my prediction for the city. This year is going to be a shaking point for Rockford. I'm saying for basically the aspects of the city. Again, prefacing this by saying the city's 40 to 60 years behind. The white community is not at odds with the black community. So the media is losing the footing of the white fear. Well, your taxes are higher out here because you don't want to move downtown. You don't move closer to them, demonizing and stigmatizing the black community to blight it, keep it disenfranchised. It's wearing off for the younger generation in a sense that there are many people that are acknowledging that there's a wrong. They just haven't figured out in their own way how to grapple with it and fight against the system. And this is what I'm seeing as an eyewitness being down here. There are a lot of people. There's a swelling that is growing amongst. It's personal. It's personal. It's not a faction. It's not a group. It's not a Facebook group. It's personal. But I'm seeing this repeating itself, where people are fed up with being fed crap. Just because you put salt and pepper on it, it's still crap. And they're fed up because they say, wait a minute, you can't subdivide the city and say the city of Rockford is going to grow. They're realizing that's not possible. You can't push a group and disenfranchise them and then say, we're going to make sure the city grows. They're not buying it. They're not buying it because they're looking at the disconnect of a hotel over here and 7 miles away, the casino. But yet, if you go back and read the literature, as I did, you'll see that the city kind of soft-shoed this, and they projected it and discussed it in a way to make you assume that the casino was supposed to be almost within walking distance of the hotel. That's how the hotel got pushed through and approved unanimously downtown. Because before that happened, watch this, before that happened, people in the community, go back and read the information. They said, we have the hotels already on East State. We got a whole bunch of them near the Best Western. We don't need another one. But then that's when they said, we're going to dovetail this. Well, we're going to bring in the casino, but we're going to need a major hotel downtown as a draw. And then the hotel got approved. And I'm telling you, people aren't buying it because even now, there's a confusion of people say, okay, I'm understanding and I'm coming to grips with the fact that this city's begging for gambling. begging for anything, and they're looking at it as, again, the way the city market is being handled is not a sign of strength; it's a sign of weakness. The way that they're surrounding it, because they're willing to put your taxpayers' dollars to suppressing people that are standing up for justice, to put forth money from the community to use it against people who are in the community. They're weaponizing your dollars to silence people that are standing up for human rights, because make no mistake about it, police brutality in America has been defined on an international level as human rights violations. So it doesn't make Rockford exempt from that. And they're weaponizing your dollars to say, well, we will use taxpayers' dollars to attempt to silence people that are also citizens and taxpayers in the community. It's very telling. Now, again, people are looking at the fact that we're begging as a city, begging for a casino in the hotels downtown. There's no major provisions for anyone at this time to come to Rockford, whether it's a tech company, whether it's another major industry, a major force, non-existent. So what I see is Rockford doubling down on the Justice Center and saying we will scrape together these conviction dollars and make as many as we can. And to your point about the domestic violence, isn't it interesting that this developed after cannabis was made legal?
What you mean?
Cannabis charges were a very lucrative charge.
No.
So you have to switch.
They're getting the state tax, so they're making their money back.
They're still making the state tax, but when you talk about conviction rates and other aspects, you move the goalpost even further by saying now we have to switch the paradigm in which we are convicting people and having them fight for their lives. Once we give them this conviction, now we can hit people more with domestics.
No, yeah, I think I don't know how correlated, with the date of when the center was made and the cannabis weed laws,
So leverage of it.
But no, I do agree that those are
leverage of the domestics to
right.
shoot up exponentially because of the whole circumstance of cannabis in conviction rates.
Yeah, again, I'm not. I don't know. I brought again the arrest from down there was more directly tied to that. I think we should do more research to finding out about some of these things. I think that's the thing that we should be careful about that. Even me, that's why I preface this by saying I want to be sensitive about the subject, because we are in no way marginalizing domestic violence, and I don't want to have any people think that it's a conspiracy.
It is a personal statement. My hope is that in Rockford, starting now as a precedent, because of this organization, this group that was developed. My hope is that Rockford does not look at this as a viable means for extreme conviction rates for the sake of the numbers in the Justice Center. Right. That's my hope. So on a personal level, I'm making that statement. This is not a correlation of the group. Right. My hope is that domestic violence does not fill some kind of economic void for the sake of disenfranchised people, so that the numbers stay high in the Justice Center.
Yes. That is 100%. That is a good point and a good statement. And I agree. I do agree with that sentiment. We just wanted to be very careful with nobody to think that we, conspiracies or, not that you were saying that, we just wanted to make sure we are being very specific. There are people out there who want to manipulate narratives and manipulate things that we say or things that we do. And even though truthfully that is indicative of the success that we have had, even though it is small amounts of success, I don't want people to think that I'm saying the success we have had as if to say we have succeeded to end police terrorism, mass incarceration, or racial injustice. I'm just saying the small successes we have had in, again, shifting, not completely changing the consciousness of the community and the consciousness of the society and the thought pattern, but in shifting it some. The manners in which we have been successful have brought about the things that come when any organization or entity entity or collective is successful, and that is the thing in which you are struggling against, will find new tactics and new ways to try to defeat the struggle. And sometimes people who are not in the arena, who are outside of the arena, will have judgments about the man in the arena, and will have judgments about the woman in the arena, and or the person or the individual in the arena. I don't want to misgender or try to I want to make sure we are being as inclusive as possible when I'm saying all these things. And so then we've been rocking out. This was a good one. We got in a couple different bags. We're going to start cutting these up into clips. For anybody who is watching this, we are in the process of getting the YouTube really up and running and pushing. We in the process of getting the Facebook really up and running and pushing. All the social media, as we get here to the end of June and into July, we're getting all of those things up and running and pushing real heavily. We are in the, we have shirts. We have a set of shirts in. We are getting more shirts in. We in the process of getting them printed. We found a place that should be in soon. We have a couple of hoodies and things that we owe to people. I have a shirt, a kid's shirt here, for somebody. I ain't gonna say no names or nothing like that. I'm gonna inbox people. But we have all of those things are coming in the process. I want to say this too, for anybody that's watching or anybody that will watch this before we wrap this up. In this phone battery, I don't know where it's at. Well, ain't nothing. 20% ain't popped up, so we still good. I want to say this too. In the days to come, and in the weeks to come, and in the months to come, and in the years to come, because that's how long and how continuous the struggle is. There will always be obstacles. There will always be things that happen that we did not foresee happening. There will always be some type of adversity or roadblocks. But what we have to understand is that collectively, no matter what the obstacle or roadblock is, collectively we can overcome it and we can defeat it. Individually, I don't believe that is a fact. Individually, there are a lot of moments that have happened since May 30th of 2020 that if I was going through them or dealing with them or in this struggle individually, I would have broken, beyond broken. I can almost become emotional just thinking about some of them, these moments that if I was truthfully alone in this, that I couldn't have been able to withstand. Even going forward, there was a moment when Ari was arrested. I wasn't downtown. I was somewhere. I was by myself. And it was the first time I had a real anxiety about going to jail. And I realized that it was the first time in which I wasn't around people in the process of me going to jail. And not only that, it was the first time where I had to know I was going to jail alone. I was, I was by myself. And so I was not processing that with anybody else. Even just seeing Ari go to jail, I watched it alone. And it was in those moments when I felt this intrepidation, about going to jail. And so I waited for a little bit, and then I eventually got myself out of the anxiety. And I found a symbolic way to go and a symbolic time. And I feel like everything at this point, for me, I believe that everything in your life is is political. It's just about whose political means does it serve. And I believe that it served the establishment's political means for me to go to jail on Friday. And as a black man, I believe that it served the struggle's political means for me to go to jail on Juneteenth. I think that is something that will always be remembered, is that on Juneteenth in this city, I turn myself in, and I want to make sure that I'm not trying to make it seem like this is a me thing. It will be just as much remembered that they went and arrested Ari. It is just as pertinent and important that Ari's arrest is remembered, and it will be remembered. I'm just giving context to a moment that I was in, as far as turning myself in. But it was when I made a phone call, talked to somebody. Talked to two different people, loved ones who are outside of this, and then instantly that feeling of being alone went away. Then somebody who's involved in this, who I would say is a member of the May 30th Alliance, picked me up, and the feeling was gone again. Brought me to the jail, and I seen another member of the May 30th Alliance there. Feeling was, all the way gone. went to walk up to the door. By the time I got to the door and pushed the buzzer, I was light as a feather. It was like being on a crosswalk. It was like sitting in the chair when they arrested me. It was like, even though the mobile was sort of like the same thing, you being so close at City Hall, knowing you was there at City Hall when they arrested me there, had me more calm, knowing you would tell people. So it was sort of like the first time I called somebody when I was in the jail. And they told me, I was like, I got arrested. And they was like, yeah, I know. I seen it on Facebook and people are sharing. And so when I went to jail in the courtroom, when I got remanded, Terry was there. When I got arrested down here with the chalk, everybody was there. And so in that moment, when I was with people again, when I had when that collective, when that community was there again, when people who were waging the struggle with me, whether they were in person here at the occupation or whether there just was a loved one who was there for me, when that was there and felt again, I knew that I could go into that jail for a week or for 2 weeks or for 2 months or for 2 years because of not just the belief I have in these things, but because I have educated myself on the fact that this is what comes with trying to get these things sometimes. That I'm not the first that would have to go through these things. And I won't be the last to go through these things if we are to actually succeed in this struggle. And that sacrifice is not something to be feared or to be scared of. In truth, sacrifice is something to embrace. It's a privilege to be able to sacrifice something. It means you have something. And I look at it as a privilege. It's a privilege to be able to sacrifice something because it means I have something to be able to sacrifice. I have something of value, whether it be my time, my freedom, or the sense of freedom that we have, or liberty, whether it be my privacy in some sense, whether it be whatever it is. And so again, I say all these things to say that I'm 100% sure that when I have court this week, I will most likely be remanded, and the judge has said as much. I'll be remanded. My bail will be raised. I'm sure it'll be a couple $1,000s. And again, I think I should say this too, as the live is going, because of the fact that not only do I think we have to be, do I want us to be transparent, I do want this to be something that is understood fully. If it is a couple of $1,000s, it's a bond fund, it's a process that we go through. It will be unrealistic for us to try to raise that much money. And even if I don't think it's unrealistic. We could raise the money, but I believe those funds could be better used for something else if it's a possibility for someone else to be able to help and to assist in this. Even if that means I sit in jail for longer than I would if the community raised the funds. I hope that the community would still donate the funds, but I just think that they should be diverted to something else at this point because of the things that are happening and the manner of things that are happening until we can get to a place in which we can build up more funds. And so I'm gonna wrap this up. We're gonna wrap this up in this one. I want to just hit all these real quick as we end it. So again, all that I say those things to say that for anybody who does want to donate, whether it be for bond money in the future, for bonds that are more affordable and realistic, or for people who we need to be bonded out more immediately, whether it be for flyers or for pamphlets, or for food, or for whatever it is whatever things we may need down here organizationally, you can donate at Cash App, $ May 30th Alliance, Venmo at May 30th Alliance, and PayPal at May 30th Alliance at protonmail.com. Again, the Cash App is $ May 30th Alliance, Venmo is at May 30th Alliance, and PayPal is May 30th Alliance at protonmail.com. We're always at the occupation at City Hall. If you want to come down and donate water, we're taking those, or snacks as it's warmer. We're having more people in the area who are unhoused or more in need of certain resources coming around, so you can feel free to come and donate things. We will pass them out and give them to people in need that come down, and people at the occupation who need them will use them as well. We want to let people know that on Tuesday we will have our Food Truck Tuesday at Nicholas Conservatory. We will have members of the May 30th Alliance out with the Winnebago Boone Integrity Task Force pamphlet. We'll be out with the speaker and the live going. engaging the community and people with the issues of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice in the city. So please come out on Friday. City Market will continue. The demonstrations will continue at City Market. Again, I can no longer be a part of those because of the legal maneuvering that is going on from the corrupt white nationalist power structure of the Winnebago County State's Attorney's Office and the City of Rockford government and the City Market employees. But that does not mean that the demonstrations will stop. I hope that me being removed and me saying openly that I can no longer do it will have more people coming and being involved and helping out to show that continued resistance and solidarity. And so I want to encourage people to please come out to City Market on Friday, 4 o'clock p.m. It'll be easy to find the May 30th Alliance. Go to where you hear the sirens and the megaphones at. So that's Friday. Again, I want to remind people that we are on June 21st, and the Winnebago County State's Attorney Jay Hanley said that they would release the findings of the Winnebago Boone County Integrity Task Force and any results from the grand jury by the end of June. And we are coming up in the last 8 days of June, last week and a half so here June. So be on the lookout for an alert to pop up on your phone that says WIFR, WREX, R*, and it's Jay Hanley, State's Attorney, up there talking about justifying the lynching of Faustin Guaitigo inside of his home and the attempted lynching of Jose Gonzalez Jr. in the streets of Rockford, Illinois, and getting ready to put those officers right back to work. And I would also say this, not that I think this is likely, but it is a possibility. We must also watch out for, because we live in a political atmosphere of foxes and not wolves necessarily. We must watch out for some type of slick maneuvering to make it seem as if they say some type of policy was done wrong, but they justify the action, or a small thing that seems as if it's an appeasement, even though I don't even think in this community, in this area, that they are in fear of the power structure or status quo being shaken enough to even give an appeasement. They feel like the Juneteenth or Cooneteenth event was that appeasement, so they're just going to justify these actions. So please be on the watch out for those things to come across your screen. I personally believe that they would like to have members of the May 30th Alliance in custody, so we cannot have a rebuttal press conference to their press conference, because there's nobody in that administration or no officer on that task force that can articulate properly the truth about what it is that is going on in this city and in this community, and what it is and the part that the police department and these institutions play in it, and the reasonings for these constant macroaggressions happening, and ways that we can stop them going forward. And because they cannot articulate those things, because they do not care to educate themselves about those things, because they are doing a numbers business, what they're going to go up there and do is just going to be like numbers, just giving numbers. There's going to be just stats and facts and information. There will be no human element to the press conference. There'll be no human element. There'll be no empathy in the press conference. The mayor will put out just a statement on Facebook with no humanity and no empathy. He won't say the victims' names. And if he does do something different, it will be because of the pressure that we have exerted on him. But I don't even believe he'll do anything different, because I believe that him and his administration and his office believe that the Juneteenth or the Cooneteenth event was that compromise, or was that gesture. So they'll continue in their inhumane gestures going forward when it comes to these victims. And so there'll be a inhumane Facebook statement released, right? And so what they are in fear of is members of the May 30th Alliance articulating the empathy that we need in these moments. And even if it does not mean that if we put together a march, or at City Market on Friday, 1,000 people or 2,000 people are there, they understand that every time that they have one of those inhumane press conferences and we have a humane one, every time that they dodge the root issues and only talk about effects, and we speak to the root issues and we speak to the causes, they understand that more people start to understand. They understand that more people start to feel the gravity of the issue. More people start to feel the need to educate themselves on the issue. More people start to see a symbol for a route for change, or a symbol for a route for something different. Because the truth of the matter is, we stand on the side of humanity in these situations, and they stand on the side of violence and cruelty on these situations. And as long as we continue to stand on the side of humanity, as long as we continue to articulate empathy, and as long as we continue to persist in our actions, we will be victorious. We will succeed in changing the consciousness of this city. We will succeed in changing the culture of this city, and we will succeed in being the one of the catalyst cities and one of the catalyst areas in the ending of police terrorism, mass incarceration, and racial injustice as we currently know it in the 21st century in America. And with all of those things being said, I want to say justice for Jovan Fresco. I want to say justice for Demetrius Bennett. I want to say justice for Mark Barmore, justice for Kerry Blake, justice for Logan Bell, justice for Geno Washington, justice for Philip Johnson, justice for Jasper Banks, justice for Suzette Babler, justice for Faustin Guaitigo, justice for Shannon Graves, justice for Lil Mike Sago, justice for Joseph McCormick, justice for Eddie Patterson, justice for Mikey Guzman. For all of those individuals who were fathers, I want to say happy Father's Day. We outside.